Hi guys, it's me, HD, and welcome to race day for the 17th Grand Prix of 2025, and it is the Azerbaijan Grand Prix on the streets of Baku. Technically, you could argue this is the final European race of the season. Obviously, part of the city of Azerbaijan is in Asia, so for us, really, it's not. But yeah, we are very much today looking forward to this Grand Prix because we had a mental qualifying session yesterday. A qualifying session that lasted about 2 hours. I think just over 2 hours even, in Baku. And it created a mental grid for today's Azerbaijan Grand Prix. The most mixed up grid I think we've had here in Baku probably since the 2021 race. Which was 4 years ago. Look how crazy that ended up being in the end. So yeah, we have got a potentially very good Grand Prix on our hands today in Baku, as you can see on the top right of the screen. The race begins in just under 2 hours' time. Cannot wait to get into this one. And hopefully it will be a lot better than the Italian Grand Prix at Monza, which of course was the last race watch along we did a couple weeks ago. We are very much looking forward to this one. And it is obviously very important for the World Championship, given that Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri both are out of position, still close to each other on the grid, but both out of position, and how they make their way through the field is going to be crucial today. So this is also, as I said, very important towards the World Championship. And talking of championships, we could have the Constructors' Championship officially decided today. McLaren, of course, have been in the lead of the Constructors' Championship ever since the first Grand Prix, can win the Constructors' title today in Baku. All they need to do is outscore Ferrari by 9 points. Sounds easy, but from where they are on the grid, even though they are both cars ahead of the two Ferraris on the grid. Again, it sounds easy, but it probably isn't going to be today. If they had at least one car in the top three, I think it would be very much doable today for them to get that Constructors' Championship won. So we'll keep our eyes on where McLaren are relative to Ferrari and whether McLaren will win the Constructors' Championship today. But I think it's likely that the Constructors' Championship victory for McLaren will have to wait until Singapore. But who knows what will happen today? Maybe they will win it, maybe they won't. We'll have to see. But we'll keep our eyes on that and make sure to keep your eyes on the McLaren-Ferrari battle. Obviously, McLaren are going to win the Constructors' Championship at some point, whether it's this weekend or the next Grand Prix in Singapore. Definitely will be by Singapore at the latest, because McLaren are going to easily win the next Grand Prix. But yeah, we'll keep our eyes on whether McLaren will be able to wrap up the Constructors' Championship and take their second consecutive Constructors' title. The last time McLaren won 2 Constructors' titles in a row was the very early 1990s. 1990 and 1991 was the last time McLaren won 2 Constructors' titles in a row. Back in the glory days, that was McLaren's most dominant period in their history, from, say, 1984 to 1991. And of course, that was the end of McLaren's period of success and domination. Will this season be the end of McLaren's, I won't say domination, but success going into next year? We'll have to see. But yeah, this should be, if it's not a great race, it should definitely be very interesting, given that we have so many cars out of position and cars in certain positions where they don't really, I wouldn't say deserve to be, but they shouldn't really be based on performance. So yeah, this is going to be a very interesting one in Baku. An update on the weather. It is still quite breezy in Baku. Not as breezy as yesterday. Yesterday was quite a bit windier. But yeah, there is still quite a breeze in Baku of about, I think, 20 kilometers an hour. So that still will be tricky for the drivers. The track, though, is dry. It's going to be a dry race, but it did rain overnight, so there isn't a lot of rubber down on the circuit. The only rubber that would have been laid down would have been by the F2 cars from this morning. So, yeah, there won't be a lot of rubber down on the racetrack. So that could make for an extra pit stop and for a two-stop race and maybe some excitement there. Of course, we will get into strategy and what will happen there. Remember, we do have the 3 softest compounds in the Pirelli range this weekend, the C6, the C5, and the C4. So, tyre wear could be a crucial factor today in terms of who wins and who finishes on the podium. But, yeah, very much looking forward to this one. And I hope you guys are as well. Hope you guys are all well on this 21st of September in 2025. And I hope no matter where you are in the world, whatever's going on in your part of the world, hope you're all having as good a time as possible given whatever circumstances you're going through. And I hope you can join not only me, but my co-commentator who will be joining me in an hour and a half, Niblo. I hope you can join us today in watching along and enjoying the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. If you can't watch, though, the race, make sure to still listen to us here because we'll keep you absolutely bang up to date with everything going on in this Grand Prix. And as the timer shows, just over an hour and 50 minutes to go until we get into that race. And like I said, Nib will be joining us probably about an hour and 20 to 30 minutes, something like that. As usual, he'll be hopping on, about half an hour before the race, and we'll get his thoughts ahead of this Grand Prix. And one final thing before we get into the build-up in terms of what happened yesterday and the data and all of that. There is a poll running, of course, as usual in the live chat, where I've asked you guys simply, who will win today's Azerbaijan Grand Prix? Will it be the pole sitter, Max Verstappen? Will it be George Russell in the Mercedes? Will it be Lando Norris, the highest placed McLaren? Or will it be the highest placed Ferrari of Charles Leclerc? Very likely to be a certain driver winning today, but do you think it'll be anyone other than Max Verstappen? Let me know in that poll, and that poll will keep running until about 5 minutes or so before the race begins. So make sure to cast your vote. And right before the race, we will go through the results and see who you guys have voted for as the most likely to win the Grand Prix today in Baku. But let's just get into it and start with the results of qualifying. And look at this top 10. Absolutely mental top 10. Almost the opposite of what I expected in qualifying. Max Verstappen on pole by half a second, pretty much, from the next car being Carlos Sainz. Just incredible, the lap that Max did at the end there. I wouldn't call it changeable conditions, but the conditions were not easy. But with Max being clearly the best driver on the grid, and for me, the best driver in the world, he was able to withstand it and manage it incredibly well and delivered a brilliant pole position lap. And Max Verstappen, with that pole lap, now has, amazingly, the most pole positions of this 2025 season. He has 6 pole positions. Norris, I think, has, is it 5? Or Piastri, I think, might have 5, and then Norris might have 4. How on earth has Max got the most poles in 2025? That is a joke, quite frankly. Max on a different level. Not just this weekend, but really since the Italian Grand Prix. He has really showcased that he is just a different level to almost everyone on this Formula One grid. And then second, Carlos Sainz delivering, finally, a good result for Williams. And not only a good result, an absolutely fantastic result for the Williams team. What can he do from that front row? It's unlikely still he'll finish on the podium because of just how much quicker the Mercedes, the McLaren, and the Ferrari car is compared to the Williams. But maybe we'll be surprised today, and maybe he can legitimately fight for a podium today. Williams have not had, I don't believe, a podium this season when they probably, I think, have deserved one, given how good especially they've been in the races. Can they somehow get it today? We'll see. But it will be very tough because, again, the Williams it's quick, but it's not, again, on the same pace as the Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, or Ferrari car. But great job by Sainz. Liam Lawson also, what an incredible lap to end up third on the grid and just about by 0.010 of a second. A lot of zeros in there. Getting ahead of Kimi Antonelli and lining up third on the grid and on the clean side, I believe, of the grid going into the first corner. So, yeah, fantastic from Lawson, who's been brilliant all weekend. And with it seemingly confirmed that his teammate Isaac Hadjar is going to be at Red Bull next season, Lawson is fighting for his Formula One future. And he did exactly what he needed to do yesterday in qualifying and got an amazing result of third place. As long as he scores points today, that would be good enough. I don't think we're expecting him to finish in the top 6 even in this race. So, yeah, as long as he finishes in the points, that would be good enough from Lawson. And then 4th and 5th, the two Mercedes cars. I think Mercedes will be disappointed not to be at least on the front row, because I think if they were on the front row, I think they could maybe think about challenging Max Verstappen for the win today. But with Sainz and Lawson in the way, makes it not impossible, but most probable that they will not be able to fight for the win. But given that they have the track position advantage over the two McLarens and the two Ferrari cars, Mercedes looking very good for a possible double podium result, something they've not had really at all this season. They had it in Canada, where of course they won that Grand Prix. But yeah, that would be a brilliant result for them. Not just in terms of this Grand Prix, but remember, they are only 20 points behind Ferrari in the championship. So if they were to finish second and third, that's 33 points. That would put them a lot closer to Ferrari, potentially ahead of them if Ferrari don't have a good day today. So we'll keep our eye on how Mercedes do. Yuki Tsunoda, 6th. The thing is with Tsunoda's result, it's the best result I think he's had this season for Red Bull. But it's still disappointing. You know, a second off the pace of his teammate, and not only that, but, I mean, nearly half a second slower than Lawson in the Racing Bulls car. So, it's a decent result, but it still should have been a lot better from Tsunoda. Lando Norris. Next up, P7. Awful from him in qualifying. I've seen quite a bit of copium online from Lando Norris fans saying, but Lando was sent out early at the end of Q3 and the grip of the track wasn't good enough and all that rubbish. At the end of the day, at turn 15, he made a mistake that nearly cost him a lot more than where he ended up. He grazed quite significantly the barrier, enough for it to be noticeable and to cost him at least half a second, but not enough for him to actually damage his car. But it ended up putting him 7th on the grid, when if he did not make that mistake, Lando probably would be in the top 3 on the grid, maybe most probably on the front row. And that could be very costly for his World Championship, because he needed really to be at least on the front row of the grid for him to take advantage of what happened to his teammate earlier in Q3. But what does he do? He pulls puts in an absolute stinker of a lap, and he's only a couple positions ahead on the grid, and actually directly ahead on the grid, because obviously Lando in 7th, Oscar in 9th, so Oscar will be staring right at the rear wing of his teammate going into turn 1. So yeah, absolutely awful by Lando. If Lando was on the front row, then he would have today a legitimate chance at winning. I don't think he would win, but he would have absolutely a good chance at winning this race. And even if he didn't win, if he finished in 2nd, he would probably still take quite a few important points away from Piastri. But yeah, just failed to deliver. Absolutely flopped on his face, quite frankly, with that final lap. Saying that doesn't mean he can't repair the damage today and outscore Oscar by quite a few points. That is possible. But we know that Oscar Piastri in a race situation is a lot better than he is in qualifying. And Piastri obviously is not going to be pushing as hard around the track as he was into turn 3 when he had his accident. So I'm not saying Piastri is going to beat Norris today, but it's a lot more likely than it was yesterday, I think. So yeah, just very disappointing from Lando. Isaac Hadjar 8th. Good result, but given where Liam Lawson ended up, I think Hadjar will be very disappointed. I think if Hadjar was, say, if Hadjar had done the best lap he could have done in Q3, I think he probably would have ended up at least 5th, maybe even just ahead of his teammate. So I think Hadjar personally will be quite disappointed to only be 8th on the grid, which sounds mental, but that's just how it played out yesterday. And then 9th and 10th, the two drivers who crashed out in Q3, Oscar Piastri and Charles Leclerc. Two drivers who could have been on pole for this race had they not crashed, but they did. Both drivers extremely unlikely to win today's race. Both drivers could end up on the podium if they make their way through the pack quick enough. But yeah, I think it's going to be a very tough race to get on the podium. I think for not only Piastri and Leclerc, but even Lando Norris, because it's not going to be easy to get past Tsunoda, Lawson, and Carlos Sainz. They're not just going to breeze past. They're not, the pace advantage difference is not as big as it has been at other Grand Prix where McLaren or Ferrari can easily just fly past. Ferrari, though, do have obviously quite a bit of an advantage in a straight line compared to McLaren. So if Ferrari do get within a second and right behind one of the McLarens, Ferrari could end up getting themselves ahead in that way. But yeah, it's going to be a tough race for the two McLarens and the two Ferraris as well. And then the second load of the results, Fernando Alonso in 11th. Alonso did the best he could. The Aston Martin just wasn't top 10 material. Lewis Hamilton in 12th. I know he went out on used tyres at the end of Q2, but it still wasn't good enough. His pace was nowhere near good enough. Even on used tyres, he was too slow, quite frankly. And yeah, 12th is obviously nowhere near good enough from Lewis Hamilton. Thankfully for him, his teammate's only a couple positions ahead, and he will be looking directly ahead at his teammate's rear end going into turn 1. In terms of this race today, I think he can take probably a 7th place, but again, it's not going to be easy, especially given that Hamilton has been, during this season, almost every time the slower Ferrari by, say, 2 to 3 tenths of a second per lap. So again, not going to be easy for Lewis Hamilton today. We remember last year in the Mercedes where he had a horror race. He did still somehow end up finishing in the points, but it was a absolutely awful Grand Prix performance by him. So I'm not expecting much from Hamilton. And then Bortoletto 13th. Bortoletto did the best he could. Sauber also just not quick enough to make the top 10. Stroll 14th. Behrman 15th. Of course, Behrman crashed out at the start of Q2. Poor mistake, because I think Behrman could have ended up at least ahead of Hamilton and maybe could have been a top 10 runner, but we never truly found out how quick that car could have been. Colapinto 16th. Hulkenberg 17th. Gasly 18th. Albon, of course, crashed out at turn 1 in Q1 in 19th place. And Esteban Ocon will start last because he was disqualified from qualifying for a rear wing infraction, let's call it that. His rear wing, I think, failed a certain aerodynamic test or deflection test that the FIA do, and was found to be in violation of the regulations. So Esteban Ocon disqualified from qualifying and will start from the pit lane. So Albon will be the last on the grid, which is quite hilarious given how this season has gone. Alex Albon has been consistently almost every Grand Prix ahead of Carlos Sainz. Yet coming into this Grand Prix, Albon will be starting at the back and Carlos Sainz is on the front row. So, yeah, that is just funny how that has played out, given the season we've had. Albon, though, if he can start on, say, a set of hard tyres and run long into the race, there is a chance he could finish in the points, because the Williams car is quick enough to finish in the points. There's no doubt about that, but I think he's going to have to play a bit of a blinder on strategy like he did at Monza a couple of weeks ago if he's going to have a chance of finishing in the points. So we'll see what he can do from 19th. But a very mixed up grid, as you can see. Definitely the top 12, very mixed up, and should make for a good race. But let's get into the sector time data to understand why it ended up the way it did, and also to estimate with McLaren and Ferrari how much quicker they would have been had they had not crashed out and had completed, the full qualifying session. In the first sector, despite with Oscar Piastri, the quickest McLaren in the first sector, despite him crashing out at the start of Q3, he still ended up having the best first sector time of anyone. McLaren were incredibly quick in that first sector, nearly a tenth quicker than Red Bull and Williams. Very, very quick in the first sector. Had Piastri done, a final lap in Q3, how much quicker could he have gone in the first sector? Maybe another tenth or two. It would have been a very quick first sector from him had he again been able to complete the session. Sorry, just having a break there to have a drink. So yeah, McLaren, very quick in the first sector. Also, you can see Ferrari quarter of a second off. If Leclerc had completed qualifying, I think Ferrari would have been only just quicker than Red Bull in the first sector. So there was definitely quite a bit more pace in both those cars in this part of the lap than what was shown up until they both crashed. And then, Williams and Racing Bull's looking very quick. Mercedes, 3/10 off in the first sector. Not good enough as far as I'm concerned. They should have been at least a couple tenths of a second closer than that. And if they were, maybe they could have ended up on the front row of the grid. And then a bit of a drop-off to Aston Martin. Sauber, Alpine, and Haas, obviously, didn't show their true pace. So the data are a bit skewed when it comes to them. The middle sector, though, Williams, somehow, the quickest team. Only just by 0.003 of a second over Red Bull. But we saw in practice Williams were really quick in the middle sector. But they were not looking to be this quick in the middle sector. So incredible pace by Carlos Sainz and the Williams team in the middle sector, continuing to show that in slow speed corners, the Williams is a really strong car, has been all season long. That's why at street circuits they're consistently very good, and probably will be in Singapore in a couple of weeks. Red Bull also, though, very good considering the issues with the front end of the Red Bull that we've seen this season. So yeah, impressed with Red Bull there. Leclerc, though, again, probably could have gone a couple tenths of a second quicker. So I think Leclerc would have been probably right on the same pace as Red Bull and Williams in this middle sector. And for McLaren, probably the same as well. Mercedes still lacking really a couple tenths of a second they should have had. I think Mercedes had potentially half a second in their pocket that they could and really should have been finding, which would not have put them on pole, but it would have put them easily on the front row of the grid. And again, would have given them a good chance at maybe winning this Grand Prix. So yeah, Mercedes, disappointing overall. McLaren, quarter of a second off. Again, I think they would have been, if they had done their best middle sector in qualifying, I think they would have been just right on the pace of Williams and Red Bull. Racing Bulls, good. Sauber, not too bad. And then Aston Martin, Haas and Alpine, 1.2 seconds, pretty much off the pace of Williams in the middle sector. That is quite incredible. I know Williams crashed on their final run in Q1, but still, that is massive. And then the final sector, here it is. It doesn't really matter, the final sector times, when it comes to qualifying in terms of showing who had good pace or anything like that. But Mercedes were the fastest team in the final sector. From Racing Bulls, Aston Martin, McLaren, Haas, Red Bull, Ferrari, Alpine, Sauber, and Williams were the slowest team in the final sector. So, impressive. Science on the front row, despite having the slowest. Or Williams having the slowest final sector speed of any team in qualifying. But overall, if we go back to these results, Lando Norris cost himself half a second at turn 15, so he would have been at least 5th had he not made that mistake. But I think if you, let's say Oscar Piastri put himself, let's say Piastri was slightly slower than Antonelli and made the same mistake as Lando did at turn 15. If Piastri had done that potentially better middle sector and first sector, I think McLaren would have been definitely on the front row. I still think, though, Red Bull probably would have just about edged out McLaren for pole position. It would have been close, but I think Red Bull just about had more pace than McLaren. I think Max had just about more pace to outqualify the McLarens. I think in terms of grip, I think, not even in terms of grip, in terms of pure speed, I think McLaren are quicker than Red Bull around this track. The difference is Max Verstappen. Not the entire difference. Obviously, the Red Bull car is better this weekend than we expected. But I still think if you put, say, the absolute same drivers in both cars, I think the McLaren would probably be a quarter of a second quicker than the Red Bull. So that's why it's so disappointing from McLaren's perspective that they ended up 7th and 9th and not at least getting one of the cars on the front row, because they would have a legitimate chance of winning this Grand Prix today. Ferrari also, I think if they had done their absolute best laps in qualifying, I think they would have ended up probably at worst 3rd, maybe 2nd. So yeah, that's it. McLaren and Ferrari, with the accidents and the poor lap that obviously Lando did at the end, they have simply cost themselves the chance to actually fight for the win today. Because if we had Max on pole and then, let's say, Piastri 2nd and Leclerc 3rd, I think there would be a legitimate 3-way fight today for the win between Max, Oscar, and Leclerc. But because Oscar and Leclerc and Lando are back where they are, it's just not doable. So that's why I think Max Verstappen, spoiler alert, in terms of my predictions, I think Max Verstappen is going to comfortably win the race today. But in terms of the pace in qualifying, I think, again, on pure pace, I think McLaren were the fastest team. I think Max was the one really that made the difference, mostly, in terms of why he got pole. Second quickest, I would probably say Red Bull, just ahead of Ferrari third, Mercedes fourth. Mercedes were, I've got to say, a bit disappointing in qualifying. I really thought they would be at least, say, the third best team in qualifying. But yeah, they just weren't good enough, quite frankly. And fourth and fifth, I know, they're ahead of both McLarens, both Ferraris on the grid, but they're, fourth and fifth is still not good enough considering that they are ahead of both McLarens and both Ferraris on the grid. So yeah, Mercedes were the fourth quickest team. Fifth quickest, I think you would have to say Williams. Sixth, Racing Bulls. And then seventh, I think you'd have to go Aston Martin. Sauber 8. Actually, no. Let me correct that. I would go Haas 7th, Aston Martin 8th, Sauber 9th, and Alpine 10th. Again, Haas, I think, had quite a bit more potential in their car than what they showed. But unfortunately, Haas are quite far back on the grid, so it's going to take something quite special for them to end up in the points, even though they did get points at this Grand Prix last year. But yeah, qualifying was, in terms of the pace difference between, especially the front-running teams, it was a lot closer than I think we all expected, and a lot more competitive than we all expected. I think if we were going to get a battle for pole, we were expecting it, I think, to be McLaren and Ferrari to be the two teams, but Red Bull put themselves right in there, and Max delivered, which is why he's on pole. Let's just go through, though, an important issue when it comes to this race, which is the top speed data. Now, this speed trap data is from the start-finish line, which, of course, is right before the very end of the pit straight. And Liam Lawson in the Racing Bulls, the quickest in the speed trap. He was very quick in the final sector in practice also, so clearly Lawson and Racing Bulls have worked well together with the setup, and what I mean by that is they worked together well when it comes to getting the setup right, and they've perfectly optimized that car, because through the corners it's good. I won't say it's great, but it's good, and then down the straights it's very efficient, and that's why Racing Bulls have got both cars in the top 10. And they got Aston Martin, even though they got good top speed, still quite, I wouldn't say quite low down on the grid, but still not in the top 10, which just shows you that they are not well hooked up to this track. And then Red Bull, third best top speed, just ahead of Alpine, who clearly took quite a bit of wing off to be quicker down the straights, but that did not help them in the corners, as we saw at the end of Q1. Ferrari's top speed, good. Same as Mercedes, interestingly. And then Haas clearly took a bit of wing off, and because normally Haas are at the bottom of the speed trap data. And then McLaren, Sauber, and Williams, the slowest in the speed trap, which is incredibly impressive that Williams have got a car on the front row with the slowest car, or one of the slowest cars in a straight line this weekend. And that might be because Williams were maybe expecting a bit more, maybe wet weather than what we got. We did obviously get 2 brief showers, but maybe that will help them today in the race manage their tyres and maybe hang on a bit longer in the podium positions. We'll have to see. But in terms of the front runners, Red Bull have got a almost 4km/h advantage over McLaren. In terms of Red Bull compared to Ferrari and Mercedes, it's only, a kilometre and a half, so pretty much nothing between those teams. But yeah, McLaren compared to Red Bull lacking quite a bit in a straight line. So with the two McLarens, in terms of trying to pass Yuki Tsunoda, who of course is in 6th, it's not going to be easy because that Red Bull definitely optimized well down the straights, and they could get held up for quite a few laps in that traffic. So that could be very costly for them today, and potentially costly for Ferrari also. Now, unfortunately, I couldn't get any race pace data from practice 2 because I don't think any of the teams really did any proper long runs, because the session on practice 2 was a bit mental. We had a couple of red flags, and I think teams were mostly concentrating on their single lap pace. So no race pace data. So let's just get into my final race prediction for this Grand Prix, which is getting underway, guys, in an hour and 25 minutes from now. And let's get into it. And I've gone with also my predicted gaps. And I'm going Max Verstappen to comfortably win the race from George Russell 2nd. Kimi Antonelli, I think, will finish in 3rd. And then close will be Leclerc, Norris, and Piastri, finishing 4th, 5th, and 6th in that order. Carlos Sainz will finish in 7th and will just about hold off Lewis Hamilton, who will finish in 8th. Liam Lawson will finish in 9th, and Yuki Tsunoda will finish in 10th. If this result does happen, McLaren would score 18 points, but so would Ferrari. Actually, no, that's not true. Ferrari would score 16 points. So McLaren would only outscore Ferrari by 2 points, meaning that the championship battle would go on to the next Grand Prix in Singapore. Obviously, there is no battle, but you know what I mean. McLaren would have to wait till Singapore to officially win the Constructors' Championship if this result that I predicted does come true. And also, if Racing Bulls, if Aston Martin don't finish the points, which is likely, and Liam Lawson does finish 9th or higher, then Racing Bulls will go ahead of Aston Martin in the championship and up to 6th, but will still be quite a bit behind Williams, who are nearly a race win in points ahead of the next car behind them, which in the midfield, that's quite a lot of points to be ahead of your rivals. So might be a good day for Racing Bulls in terms of the Constructors' Championship. But that's my race prediction. Let me know, guys, either in the live chat or in the poll running in the chat, who do you think is going to win this race? What do you think the podium's going to be? What's your top 5? How do you think Ferrari and McLaren especially will do from their lower down grid positions? Let me know in the live chat, and I will get to your comments soon enough. Let me just quickly get the timer back on screen, as we have got pretty much an hour and 20 minutes to go until lights out. And there you go. Hour and 21 minutes to go. And yeah, cannot wait for when we get started here. Quickly though, before we go on to tyre strategy, and we'll obviously do a quick bit on that, just want to say, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Bottom right of the screen, you can do it right there. We do qualifying and race watch alongs for most Grand Prix. So if you want to keep up to date with what's going on and be part of this community, then make sure to subscribe to the channel. Again, bottom right of the screen, you can do it there. And make sure to smash the like button. We're only on 10 likes in a minute. Let's try and get up to 20 plus likes if we can in the next, say, 20, 30 minutes. That'd be great if we could do that. So make sure to smash the like button if you have not already. It does help the channel in the algorithm, and obviously it is a great show of support for me on the channel and for my future possible activities. Now, let's get into tyre strategy, and let me have a look to see what do you call it? Let me have a look to see what Pirelli have said in terms of the race strategy today. So according to Pirelli, let me just adjust myself quick into a more comfortable seating position. There you go. Yeah, Pirelli have said that today is going to be a one-stop race, but there are 3 different options as to what you can do for a one-stop race today, according to Pirelli. The first option, and probably the best option, is to start on the medium tyre, pit between laps 16 and 22, and then go on to a set of hard tyres to finish the race. That's what I think most people are going to do. The other option is start on the hard tyre. This is the one I think Alex Albon's going to do back in 19th. Start on the hard tyre, pit between lap 29 and 35, and then finish the race on a set of mediums. And then the third and most unlikely option, but still possible, is to start on the red marked soft tyre, C6 compound, pit between lap 10 and 16, and then go the rest of the race on the hard compound tyre. We will see what the drivers decide to do. I think most likely they're going to start on the medium and then go, say, about, if they can, 20 laps into the Grand Prix and then make their first and only pit stop onto the hard compound tyre. But of course, safety cars are common here in Baku, and if they occur mid-race, that can really affect race strategy and maybe force certain people to pit for a second time. If they've already pitted quite early, or, if you've ran long into the Grand Prix, you can obviously then pit under the safety car, and that can, really make your race, because it saves you 10 to 12 seconds, which is, especially in the midfield, that's a lot of time. So that is the potential race strategies for today. Let's just quickly go through in the top 10 who has what tyres available. Because, of course, a lot of drivers yesterday in qualifying used the medium compound tyre. For Oscar Piastri, he has 2 new sets of hard tyres and 1 new set of mediums. Same for Lando Norris. Leclerc has 1 new set of soft tyres and 2 new sets of the hard compound. So I'm wondering if Ferrari may start Leclerc on the soft tyre just to be aggressive at the start and get him maybe 2 or 3 positions up in the first few laps, and then maybe go into a hard tyre. We'll see. Not sure how scrubbed those mediums are. Might be a bit too scrubbed for Ferrari's liking. Lewis Hamilton, of course, he didn't make the top 10, so he's got 2 new sets of hard tyres and 2 new sets of mediums and 1 new set of soft tyres, so he has a lot to play with tyre-wise. Max Verstappen, in terms of new tyres, only has 2 new sets of the hard compound tyre. I'm pretty sure, though, one of the medium sets that he has available that is used has not been used enough to the point where he can't, start on that compound. So I think Max will just go for the normal medium to hard strategy. Tsunoda also starting on the top 10. He's only got 2 new sets of hard tyres. He hasn't got any new mediums or softs. Russell and Antonelli. Actually, George Russell has 2 new sets of hard tyres and no new sets of anything else. Kimi Antonelli, though, has also 2 new sets of hard tyres, but he does have, Antonelli, 1 new set of soft compound tyres. So it'd be interesting to see what they potentially do there. Both Racing Bulls cars have no new sets of tyres. Carlos Sainz, interestingly, compared to Racing Bulls, has 2 new sets of hard tyres and 1 new set of soft compound tyres. So Carlos Sainz has a lot to play with tyre-wise for this Grand Prix, which is good for him. So those are the race sets in terms of who has what compound, and we'll see who starts on what compound. Again, I think almost everyone is going to start the race on the medium compound tyre. But let's just quickly touch on race strategy, especially for the front running teams, and what the teams should do. So we'll start at Red Bull. For Max Verstappen, as I said, I think he will just do the typical medium to hard strategy, and I think that's what he should do. Given that his, in terms of on pure performance, closest rivals are quite a bit lower down on the grid and close to being halfway on the grid. But, Max has the freedom to just push along in that first stint and, grow that gap big enough that he doesn't have to worry about cars behind. And then he can just pit like normal, say lap 20 for his first and only pit stop, and then go onto a set of hard tyres. So, yeah, I think that's what he will do. And if, by the time his pit stop comes around, if there is a Mercedes in second place, as long as Max is 5 seconds at least clear, then I think Max is absolutely fine to pit on lap 20, even if McLaren or Ferrari decide to go 5 or even 10 laps longer into the race than, than saying what Max is planning to do. So, yeah, for Verstappen, I think that's really what he should do. There's no point playing around with the strategy. Just should go for the atypical one. For Yuki Tsunoda, it's tricky to say what they'll go for with him, because he could very easily just do the same strategy as Max, or maybe, especially if he is holding up the two McLarens and Leclerc in the Ferrari, they may decide to keep him out quite a bit longer than Max, again, if he is ahead on track and holding up those cars, because the more he holds up those cars, then obviously Max on fresh tires and all of that, could make his way through and get and you get the result that he needs. So yeah, I think with Tsunoda, we'll keep an eye on that in terms of if he can hold up McLaren and Ferrari, whether they'll decide to go a bit longer with him into the race to try and help Max even more in terms of protecting him against potential fights maybe later in the race if McLaren and Ferrari do have a really strong pace in this Grand Prix coming up in just over an hour's time. For Mercedes, I think Mercedes also should probably just do the atypical strategy. I don't think there's any point for them to do anything different, as long as they can make it to lap 20 and not be losing tons of pace compared to what, say, other teams are doing through, heavy tyre wear, then Mercedes should be fine. With both cars to pit, again, around lap 20, go onto the hard tyre, and then finish the race. So, Mercedes, as long as their pace is good enough, they should be fine. I don't think they need to do anything funky on the race strategy. And then we have, obviously, the case of McLaren and Ferrari. For McLaren, I think they should just run as long into the Grand Prix as they can get away with, because we know McLaren manage tyres probably the best out of any team on the grid, and there's nothing to lose, so why not just run as long into the Grand Prix as they can on, say, 2 sets of medium compound tyres, and if they can somehow get the lap, say, 30 on that same compound, and then the fresh hard tire proves to be the hard tire proves to be very good, then McLaren could very well be in play for maybe beating Ferrari, or even getting onto the podium if they have enough of a pace advantage and pace difference compared to the two Silver Arrow cars. So I think that's the only thing McLaren can do is, again, just go, quite long into the race, quite a bit longer than your rivals, then pit, and then push hard and see what happens. But I think McLaren know that today a podium, unless something mental happens, a podium is very unlikely to happen. So yeah, McLaren gonna have to try something a bit different if they're gonna somehow drag a podium out of this poor grid position. And Ferrari, I think, will probably have to do the same, run quite a bit longer than, say, Mercedes and Max in the Red Bull to try something different. And maybe it will allow Leclerc then to finish on the podium. Of course, when it comes to, if Ferrari are in a position where they're right behind the McLarens, they could definitely overtake them in a straight line. I think without even if they don't have the greatest slipstream or the greatest DRS or the greatest whatever you want to call it. Yeah, I just sorry, I saw something on my screen and I just lost my train of thought. But what I'm trying to say with Ferrari is in terms of getting on the podium, which is the only probably good result they can get today, they're going to have to try something different like McLaren, which is going a lot longer into the race. Will they split their strategy and go on the hard tyres to start with? Maybe. I think it's definitely worth doing with Lewis Hamilton because what is there to lose? But yeah, the only thing they can do is go longer into the race and then on fresh tyres, push as hard as they can and see where they end up. But it is, again, like I said with McLaren, pretty unlikely that they will finish on the podium unless they have a real big pace, not just difference, but advantage compared to especially Mercedes. But we have seen before, I remember back to the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix with Ferrari where they went quite a bit longer than Mercedes in the first stint there. And that's also a 50-lap race like this one will be. And yeah, Ferrari ended up having much better pace and ended up coming through and taking the podium. It was their first podium of the season at the time. So maybe that can, pay off again today. But again, unlikely. I think we'll see Ferrari or McLaren on the podium today. But guys, let me know in the live chat, what do you think is going to happen in terms of race strategy and how the teams will fare? And again, make sure to give me your predictions for who's going to win and the top 3, the top 5, all of that. And we'll get into some of your comments in a moment. But I'm just going to have another sip of my water. So I'll just quickly mute myself and then I'll be back in a second. So there you go. That's a lot better. And one thing I did want to quickly announce, which I did talk about yesterday, and I will quickly mention this again for anyone who wasn't around for the qualifying stream yesterday. Just to announce, I did upload 2 recorded videos in the last, say, 10 days. Those 2 videos are in the description. The links to those videos are in the description. So if you want to go watch them, make sure to go and check them out before the race. One video is about sorry, is about how Red Bull failed Max Verstappen in 2025 in terms of the car design and what's gone wrong. And the other video is about how it's time, in my opinion, for Lewis Hamilton to retire from Formula One. So if you want to go check those videos out, links in the description. And as I said yesterday, those two recorded videos will be the last recorded videos on the channel until we finish the season. There will still be the podcast episodes after every Grand Prix, so don't worry. That will still be uploaded. And of course, tomorrow I will upload my podcast reviewing the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Should come out late tomorrow night. My Baku Grand Prix podcast episode review. So those will still be coming out. And in terms of the streams, I will still be regularly streaming, obviously, for when we have Grand Prix. So don't worry, there is still going to be plenty of content on the channel. But one other thing I can announce is that today, of course, I'm doing a race watch along, thankfully. But this will be today my last race watch along for a month. Because the next Grand Prix in Singapore in 2 weeks, I will not be doing a race watch along. I'll only be doing a qualifying watch along in Singapore. So in terms of the people that really enjoy the race watch alongs, the next one will be the US Grand Prix at the Circuit of the Americas, and then I'll also miss Mexico for the race watch along, and then I'll be back again for Brazil. So out of the final 8 races we have, there will still be quite a few race watch alongs, don't worry. But yeah, Singapore and Mexico at least I will be missing for the race watch alongs. But I'll still obviously do the qualifying watch alongs on those weekends where I'm not doing a race stream. But hopefully this race today could again be a lot better than what we got at Monza, because Monza was, given our expectation level, it was pretty dreadful. I think what we got at Monza, it was nowhere near some of the races we've had there in recent years. So let's hope for a lot better today, as we have got just over 1 hour to go until the race is underway. Let's go through your comments though in the chat. We'll go through your comments probably the next half an hour, and then I'll post a link of the stream out again, and then bring my co-commentator for today, Niblo, on. Right. Hello to everyone. Wildcorn Novii, Will F1, Herman, Astro, Tavo Power. Good to see you all. Herman says, I think we'll see some unexpected crashes. Astro saying no Piastri option in the pole chasser. I considered it, but because Lando is 2 positions ahead on the grid, I think Lando is the most likely McLaren driver to win today. That's not to say McLaren are likely to win today. I think the likelihood is very low, but yeah, I think Lando is the most likely because of being a couple positions ahead on the grid. And even though Lando didn't have a good qualifying lap yesterday, Oscar was even worse. So in terms of this weekend, you'd have to say Lando has outperformed Oscar so far, but we'll see how the race goes. Again, we know Oscar is superior when it comes to the races. Tom says, hello, is it easy to overtake a race like Monaco? It is like Monaco in the middle sector and for some of the first sector, but in the final sector, where it is literally flat out, it can be like Bahrain, where you can have multiple overtakes. So it just depends, I think, on how competitive the field is, really. Michael Jones says if Verstappen gets a good start, he should leave Sainz and Lawson and get a good gap. He should. It will take Mercedes, I wouldn't say a bit of time to get past Lawson and Sainz, but it won't be immediate. I think it'll probably take, for Mercedes to get up to second place, it's going to take at least 5 laps for that to happen. It might take a lot longer. But in those, say, at least 5 laps where Max has, say, Sainz or Lawson in between him and the Mercedes, McLarens, and who else, Max needs to absolutely be on it and be pushing as hard as possible. Because if he can, he could maybe build a 5-second lead in those first, 5, 6 laps. And yeah, that would really help his Grand Prix in terms of being able to have the freedom to pit and have really, the best race strategy for today, which will obviously help him along to win. Be cool if Sainz gets podium finish, says KH. It would, but I do feel a bit sorry for Alex Albon if Sainz does get on the podium, because Albon, again, has been miles better than Sainz in 2025. And really, if there is any driver right now who doesn't have a podium for not, this year, what do you call it? Sorry, again, distracted by, I just watched Sky F1, I was just distracted by something. Alex Albon, this year has been so much better, and still hasn't had a podium at Williams, is what I was trying to say. And obviously hasn't had a podium this year. Obviously, Isaac Hadjar in the Racing Bulls had a podium a couple races ago. That was 3 weeks ago. Feels already a lot longer than that since the Dutch Grand Prix. Albon, if you look at his performances this season, Albon has deserved to be on the podium many times. Miami, Imola, you could say maybe even Zandvoort, where he finished in 5th. The last Grand Prix at Monza, I thought he was one of the top drivers in that race. You could maybe argue that race as well. Albon, if there's any driver this season who hasn't been on the podium who deserves it, it's Alex Albon. So that's why I feel sorry for Albon, because unless of an absolute miracle, he is, not going to finish on the podium when he, based on this season, absolutely deserves it a lot more than Carlos Sainz. Astro gives his top 10 prediction, which is absolutely mental as always. He is rarely right with these mental predictions, but again, keyword is rarely, because he has been right, I think, a couple times before. Piastri to win from Sainz, Antonelli, Leclerc, Hamilton, Tsunoda, Hadjar, Alonso, Hulkenberg, and Ocon. If that happens, then I'll probably, my voice will be gone by the end of the race if we have a result like that. Piastri winning from 9th on the grid would be mental. Herman saying Sainz, Lawson, Hulkenberg. Paul Evans says Lewis has new mediums with soft safety car, could play a big hand. It could. Depends where he is though in the pack. Needs to put himself in a good enough position. Matthew says for his prediction, Verstappen to win from Sainz in 2nd, interestingly. Leclerc 3rd, Hamilton 4th, and then Hadjar 5th, Tsunoda 6th, Alonso 7th, Hulkenberg 8th, Ocon 9th, and Antonelli 10th. Also another mental prediction. Again, though, you never know. It could happen. Look at qualifying yesterday. Nobody And I even said it right after qualifying finished. Nobody would have predicted the result we got. My prediction for qualifying, my top five, I think, was Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Verstappen, and Norris. Only, I think, what, two of those drivers ended up in the top five in reality. Paul Evans says, my predictions, Max, Norris, Lewis, Leclerc, Piastri. Let me see if I can find some other comments here. Tobin Powell says safety car at the right time can make the race exciting. It can, but I think in most cases it actually can ruin the race. Because there's been a lot of times where we've been in a position where we're heading for a very interesting conclusion, and then a safety car comes out and resets it all and kind of ruins it. So, I mean, look at last year's race in Baku. We did have a safety car at the very end of the race for that massive crash with Sainz and Perez. But before that, we didn't have a safety car at all in that race, and it was a really, really good race. So I'm hoping it's we stay clear of that. As Brabham says, I refuse to not go for Piastri in your poll. Maybe I should have put him in the poll, but yeah, I'd be amazed if he got anywhere near the race win today. Same for Norris, to be fair. And Brabham saying, I assume there'll be a few safety cars, so a lot of people can win. Maybe, again, last year we only had one safety car at the end, which basically just ended the race early, didn't affect, the race result. 2023, I think we had a safety car on the first lap, maybe. And then that was it. And then I think the year before in 2022, I think we only had maybe a safety car after a few laps. So we haven't actually had that many safety cars really affecting, especially the results of the race as of late. Not since really 2021, I would say. So, yeah, we'll see how it plays out. Will going for a McLaren double DNF in his prediction. He's not the biggest fan of McLaren, at least their drivers. And yeah, Will's prediction is Verstappen the win from Russell, Antonelli, Leclerc, Sainz, Lawson, Hamilton, Hadjar, Alonso, Alonso, and Sonoda. I would be amazed if both McLarens retire from this race, but we've had crazier things happen, especially here in Baku. Both Red Bulls crashed into each other all the way back in 2018. I mean, they weren't fighting for a championship, but, it happened. We've had many. I mean, Mercedes in 2021 didn't even finish in the points. Obviously, because of Lewis Hamilton's pretty much last lap, restart, lock up. So, yeah, we've had some absolutely mental results here in Baku. Fingers crossed, today will be another day like that. But just trying to scroll Twitter to see if there's any news that I can bring you guys. And no, there's no news at the moment, as we've got just over 45 minutes to go Astro saying, I would have voted Oscar if he'd been there, but ended up voting Leclerc. Be ironic if this year he doesn't get pole here, he wins it. It would, because of course, Leclerc pole in 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024. Last year's race, I still can't believe that Leclerc didn't win. He would look so certain to win up until that overtake by Piastri. And then somehow Piastri held on. It was just, yeah, a mental race. One of the most enjoyable races of last year, without doubt. And let's hope for something as good. I'm hoping, obviously, for something as good, but I'm definitely not expecting it because this season in general has been quite a bit less exciting than what we had last year. But again, in Baku, you never know. Some years you get absolutely dreadful races here in Baku. Some years you get absolutely mental ones. We'll see. And by the way, in regards to the Azerbaijan Grand Prix and its future, it was announced by Formula One yesterday that they have extended the contract for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and it will be on the calendar until 2030. The reason they renewed the contract, is because their contract was up next year. Next year would have been the last race here in Baku. But it's been extended for a few more years. Some of you may be happy with that. I still would rather we ditch this race and put, say, Istanbul Park on the calendar. The reason I mentioned that Grand Prix track is because it has been rumoured quite heavily in the last few months that Turkey will be back on the calendar probably in the next 2 or 3 years. I'd rather have that on the calendar than this race, but that's their decision, Formula One's decision, and that's the way it is. So, yeah. Sam Tingy says red flag today. Hopefully not, because if we get a red flag, it'll probably end up lasting quite a while. Astro asking about the weather. Weather is dry, still windy, still at least a 20 km/h wind, if not more. There are some reports that it might be even stronger than yesterday, but from what I've seen, it's probably a slight bit weaker than yesterday by maybe 2 or 3 km/h. And yeah, in regards to the weather, yeah, it's bone dry, bit windy, but not a lot of rubber on the track because, again, as I said earlier, it did rain overnight. Not massively. It was only a bit of rain. It wasn't anything bad, but that maybe improves the chances of a bit of a mental race. Herman says Lord Balu of Baku paid many millions of dollars to remain on the grid. And Astra saying Baku was either brilliant or boring. Absolutely. I remember the first Grand Prix here in 2016. It was dreadful. We did have a lot of overtakes, but the problem is the almost all of them were really easy overtakes, and that was back when the cars could actually follow each other a lot better than what we've seen in the last few years. And the slipstream effect of those cars back then was quite big. So we got a lot of overtakes, but not really any battles because, again, it was just way too easy to overtake. But thankfully, then it was followed up by 2 absolutely bonkers races in Baku, which will live long in the memory. And next year will actually be the 10-year anniversary since the first Grand Prix here, which is mental to think that next year will be 10 years since 2016. But there you go. Michael Jones says Malaysia needs to come back. There was a news report about the Malaysian Grand Prix that I saw in the last couple of months about how it's just a matter of money, and that if they can find the money, that F1 is willing and Liberty Media are willing to, host races back in Sepang. They're willing to host races at, let's say, a decent, what do you call it? For a decent price for what F1 wants. But at the end of the day, it's just a money issue. The track, we know, is a quality racetrack. It's a really good racetrack. Again, I would rather get rid of this Grand Prix and have a race in Malaysia any day over the Baku circuit. But again, it's a money issue, and once the right price can be found, then it'll be back on the calendar. I think we will have. I think we will get back to having Malaysian Grand Prix for sure, because the desire is there. I think probably from the population in Malaysia, and it seems like politically there is a desire to have F1 back. But again, it's just a money issue. So, yeah, at some point, I think we'll see us racing back in Malaysia, but it probably still won't be for at least another few years. So, yeah, gonna have to wait quite a bit still for that. Will F1 saying 24 races is far too many. Absolutely. You're telling me. Not only, I'm sure, is it absolutely knackering for, the drivers, the teams, even the media, but even for me here, covering a Formula One season is so much more tiring now than it used to be. Back before COVID, because now we've got 24, even 25 races on the calendar. I mean, we will have at some point. I think, did we have 25 races last year? I can't remember. There were so many of them, but yeah, it's just ridiculous. At least 5 races too. Sorry, at least 5 races too many on the calendar. As just looking at Anthony Davidson on the Sky broadcast analysing overtakes from last year's Grand Prix as they're about to do the grid walk. Rook saying 20 races is about right. Yeah, I think about 20, maybe even 21 races, you could say, at most, is about right. I think any more than that, any more significantly over than that, and even 2 more races than that is significantly over, as far as I'm concerned, is just not good enough. So, Astro saying, when I started watching, the season was 16 races long in the mid 80s. When I started watching in what was it, 2011, 2012, it was about 19, 20 races. So back then it was pretty much ideal. And the season would start, mid-March and end in, end of November, which was not that much shorter than what we have now, to be honest. It was only like maybe a week or two shorter than, you know, than what we have now. Next year, we start a week earlier than what we did this year. Next year, we start on the first weekend of March. First full weekend of March is the first weekend of the first Grand Prix, and then as usual, the first weekend of December is the final race of the Formula One season. Only 2.5 weeks before Christmas, so next season is going to be very long, especially covering it on the channel, because not only is the first race a week sooner, pre-season testing is I think a week sooner in Bahrain, but also remember there is an additional pre-season test in Spain at the end of January, which is not going to be covered officially by the broadcasters, but we will still be covering it here on the channel. Not with watch-alongs, but I'll obviously still be doing reviews and talking about, whatever talking points there are. So the Formula One season basically starts at the end of January. So from when the season ends this season, we'll only have about 6 weeks, and then we'll already be talking about the new cars. So it's not a long time, and 6 weeks when you're busy doing stuff is absolutely nothing, isn't it? So yeah. Um, let's see if I can find any other good comments here. Herman saying sprint race waste of time. Absolutely. I was sad to see that it looks like we're going to have more sprint races on the calendar, not next year, but the year after. At the minute, we've got 6 per year. Looks like we're going to have 10 or even 12 per year by 2027. So it's going to get even worse as Stefano Domenicali seeks to ruin the quality of Formula One even further in benefit for his bank balance. As Hadjar on the radio on the way to the grid saying there's something wrong, really weird sound when I'm on throttle. Thankfully for him, there's still another 35 minutes to go until the race, so if it's a minor issue, they should be able to fix it as he's slowly touring through the kinks now down the pit straight. Uh, Michael Jones saying, to be honest, they can drop some tracks from the calendar. If I was in charge of things, Baku would be one of the races I would take off the calendar. And what other races would I take off? I think Saudi Arabia I would take off. Um, People may think I would take off Las Vegas, but at least the Las Vegas Grand Prix track is exciting or interesting for it, from a racing perspective because of the layout. So yeah, Saudi Arabia and Baku definitely would go. Next year we're gonna have the Madrid Grand Prix. I've seen the track for that. It looks absolutely dreadful, so I would take that off as well. Um, and even though it's a great atmosphere, Mexico, I think, is another one that I would probably get rid of because again, the track is not a good track whatsoever when it comes to racing because of the way they've redesigned what is now the old what do you call it? What was I talking about? What track was I talking about just then? Sorry, I got distracted again by watching the cars. Um, is Madrid that bad? Law, I haven't seen it. F1 posted like a simulation lap of the track, and it was so bad. The actual car that drove it in the simulator ended up actually hitting the barrier during the lap because of how tight the circuit is for those cars. Yeah, Astra saying lose Miami. Yeah, I think if there was 5 races I could get rid of, I think it'd be Miami, Jeddah, Baku, Madrid, um, and then probably what? Maybe out yeah, Mexico. That was the other one. Those would be the 5 that I would easily drop off the calendar. And if you want to, replace maybe a couple of them, then yeah, Malaysia and Turkey is what I would go for. Hadjar in trouble, says Patrick. Yeah, not looking good for Hadjar at the moment. But again, there is still another half an hour, so he might be able to get that fixed. Hopefully he can, because he's in 8th place on the grid. But let me see if there's a couple more comments before I post a link of the stream out. And I am, in a minute, well, not in a minute, but probably the next 2 or 3 minutes, going to bring on my co-commentator for today, Niblo, who I'm sure has much to say about what happened in qualifying yesterday. And I know he's looking forward to this race. Turbo Power saying, do most people like sprint races? As I don't see the appeal. What part of it is endurance? From what I can tell, most people in the F1 community don't like sprint races. The reason they are increasing the sprint races is because sprint races get more viewers than practice sessions. That's why we're having sprint races. Thankfully, though, because of how they positioned it in the schedule for a weekend, where there's a sprint qualifying on the Friday and then the sprint races on the Friday or the Saturday morning, thankfully, you can still watch qualifying and the race and not be reminded of the sprint race because it doesn't affect the weekend's running like it used to a couple years ago. The only thing it affects, of course, is the championship because obviously points are on offer. But that's why they have it. It's because it gets more viewers than practice sessions, which of course it's going to. But that doesn't mean it's a good thing, and it doesn't mean it should be a thing. If we had the drivers having a foot race around the track, that would get more viewers than practice sessions. Doesn't mean we should do that. Anyway, um, Herman's saying Hadjar to start from the pit lane. Let me just. I haven't seen anything on Twitter to suggest that, unless they've said it on Sky. But currently, Sky are on an ad break, so we'll see what happens for Hadjar. Anyway, I'm just going to post a link of the stream out one final time, and then we are going to bring on Niblo, who I'm sure you guys have just seen. It's posted in the chat. Come join us here to watch along. possible thriller in Baku. And there you go. So hopefully we'll get some more people hopping on in the next 25-30 minutes. But let me just have a quick drink and then I'll adjust a couple things and obviously bring him on. Right. So let me just, as I said, adjust a couple things. And let's bring him on. Right, are you there?
Hello.
Yeah, there you are, loud and clear. How are you ahead of this race?
Well, I'm really good, but not obviously because of F1 stuff, because of other sports stuff, but um yeah, the only negative thing was obviously Q3 yesterday. And my god, what a shambolic qualifying session. 2 hours. 2 hours. I mean, has a qualifying session ever gone longer that's not been like weather interrupted?
There was one. It was actually here in Baku a few years ago. I think 2019. It was the one where Leclerc crashed in the castle section.
Oh,
That
that's
was
right.
that was nearly 3 hours. That one. Um, yeah, it's Baku, isn't it? The drivers just always they love crashing here. We had, what was it? Colapinto, Gasly, Behrman, Piastri, Leclerc, Albon. I mean, that's 6 drivers yesterday who crashed. So yeah, it was pretty bad, the driving standards, but thankfully for us, it set us up for a really really good grid. Before we get on to obviously the drivers that really messed up, let's start with the man on pole, Max Verstappen. Unbelievable lap at the end of Q3 to get onto pole. Most likely he's going to win today. With Verstappen, just how incredible did you think his performance was in qualifying? Maybe not the best that we've seen this season, because I mean he was helped by some of his rivals obviously messing up and putting it in the barriers, but yet again, just proving, didn't he, that he is by far the best.
Yeah, well, I actually didn't see him take pole because after Piastri crashed, I just turned it off. So I didn't know Verstappen got pole until I saw all the tweet notifications by Medland and Luke Smith. So I didn't see the lap live, but I did we need any confirmation that he's the best driver in the sport? No, we didn't. It's just Max Verstappen, especially since Red Bull have picked up their game over the last month or so. Of course, there's some I think bigger talking points than there is Max Verstappen being on pole. I think even if the McLarens didn't uh, bottle it, I still think actually Verstappen would have been on pole because he's really quick in FP3 as well.
Yeah, I think we estimated it earlier looking at the sector times. It would have been still close, but it probably by a tenth and a half, I think Max probably would have still been on pole, as Hadjar saying that he still has no power. He's now got back. I think he's on the starting grid, so they're going to do some work to it. But yeah, not good there for Racing Bulls. We'll see if they can fix whatever issue with the power unit or whatever's going on there. Um, yeah, even if the two McLarens and Leclerc had done their best laps, I think Max overall was just a slight bit too quick by a tenth and a half or so. And yeah, it was again, it wasn't the best pole lap of the season from him. Suzuka, Silverstone obviously was absolutely amazing from him, but he delivered and a lot of the others didn't. In regards though to the drivers that messed up, in terms of Piastri and Leclerc, I mean, it's obviously, it's obvious as to what or why they had their accidents. They were just simply pushing too hard. But for me, the biggest talking point in regards to all of that is the driver that failed to capitalize on all of that, Lando Norris, who put in a rubbish final lap in qualifying. And not only that, he was actually very lucky on that final lap that he didn't put it straight in the barrier at turn 15 like Leclerc did. He scraped quite a lot of the barrier at turn 15 and somehow still dragged it round for a 7th place. But it was incredibly poor and disappointing, and pretty much, Nib, sums up Lando Norris's season where, even if Piastri here and there has a not so great weekend or makes a mistake, Lando just simply cannot deliver, can he?
No, and this has been the first big mistake by Piastri since Australia. In Australia, he of course capitalised, but he didn't here. I mean, to be only 2 grid places ahead of him is honestly shambolic. Um, Oscar Piastri doesn't make a lot of mistakes. First crash he had since Canada 23, I think it was.
Yeah.
So it's been a long time, and yeah, he did break later into turn 3 on the lap he crashed into the wall, but I think what the big contributing factor, even Antonelli was mentioning it, that all the white lines were absolute hell, and Piastri just braked on the white line on the outside, and I think that was probably a contributing factor to him going straight on into the wall, quite a bit impact into the wall, and just absolutely astonishing that Norris didn't capitalise. I mean, Norris has already got an uphill struggle now with Verstappen being at the front more often again to gain on Piastri. So the fact that he couldn't deliver it when Piastri started ninth is, yeah, a massive disappointment for Norris. And yeah, Leclerc, an odd one this weekend. I mean, he said it himself. He's usually so good around this track, and it's hilarious, right? You'd probably say the best driver around this circuit is Charles Leclerc, and yet he's never won a Grand Prix here, just because, well, a multitude of issues, mainly Ferrari. I mean, last year he probably should have won, but got done by an absolute worldie of an overtake by Piastri, of course. So big disappointment for Leclerc. But let's see what they can do in the race. And sticking on Ferrari, oh dear, Lewis, oh dear.
Yeah, it was pretty bad in towards the end of Q2 there from Hamilton. But yeah, Leclerc, as you say, is amazing. He's never won here, considering he's been quickest in the last 4 qualifying sessions before, obviously, this weekend. And as you say, Ferrari always messing it up. With the McLaren battle, obviously Norris failing to capitalise. I think, though, Piastri will still be obviously quite disappointed, because if Lando had done that anyway in qualifying and Oscar had not crashed, I think Oscar would have been probably at least on the front row and could have really capitalised on Lando being quite a bit back. But even though, and this is what makes Lando's qualifying just so poor, is even though Lando is a couple positions ahead on the grid still could easily lose to Piastri today. So, yeah, just a shocking effort from Norris. Of course, the gap is 31 points. Lando today really needs to outscore Oscar by at least, I would say, 5-6 points to really, get that championship going down at a steady rate. As you say though, Max Verstappen now back in play. Um, that's gonna affect things quickly though, and I know this is obviously very unlikely. How big a chance would you say there is that Max Verstappen could somehow win this championship? For me, I would say at the absolute most, I'd say probably 10%. What would you give it?
It's not happening. I mean, I don't think I need to talk anyone on how highly I think of Verstappen, but no, there's no way. I mean, he would need a lot of help, not only from the McLarens, but from other teams to suddenly pick up their pace, and I don't really see that happening.
Yeah, it's again very, very unlikely. I mean, if you look at, I mean, we've got 8 races to go. Even if Max wins all the remaining races and Piastri finishes third in those remaining races, Oscar would still win the championship, of course, if Lando, didn't outscore Piastri enough in those 8, Grand Prix. So, as you say, Max would need some really big point swings in these final 8 races. Maybe there'll be a big one today, maybe 12 to 15 points or so, but he would have to be doing that regularly in these final few races. But technically, still possible. So we'll see at least for Max, he can get some race wins in these final few races because a few months ago, or not a few months ago, maybe a couple months ago, I remember Max coming out saying that he wasn't sure he could win another race this season, but looks like he's pretty likely today to take his second win in a row since the return from the summer break. So we've got just over 15 minutes to go until we are underway. What's your top 3 then for the race today? What are you going for?
Jesus, I've been good at preparing a actual top three prediction, but I genuinely haven't today. Verstappen's gonna win. Uh there's your prediction. What a shocking and groundbreaking prediction. um can Russell still finish on the podium with maybe a McLaren behind him?
Absolutely, why not?
Yeah, something like that.
I mean, given that Mercedes are 4th and 5th, I'd be very surprised if Mercedes did not have a car on the podium. So
Yeah.
you'd think one of them would be on the podium, and then with McLaren and Ferrari, I think they're gonna have to do something on strategy. Run quite a bit longer to probably get themselves into that fight. Obviously, it depends how quickly they can get themselves through the traffic of Hadjar, Sonoda, Lawson, and Carlos Sainz. A quick word also on Sainz and Lawson, second and third on the grid. Especially great from Lawson, considering he's now fighting for his Formula One future to try and secure his seat at Racing Bulls for next year. With Sainz, obviously, finally he had like a really good result for what's been an absolutely terrible season. Do you think they can maybe finish in the top 6, Sainz and Lawson, or do you think they're just going to fall away really, really quickly?
They're they're surely gonna fall away quite quickly. I mean, obviously they're quite a bit slippery in a straight line, but the straight is so long here that I don't think it should stand for too much. Um, it's going to be interesting today because it's still quite a bit windy. Not as windy as yesterday, which definitely caused some of the dramas. So I think it'll
Hmm.
be interesting to watch out for that again.
Yeah, there is still quite a big breeze. Like you said, not as bad as yesterday, but the track definitely not in that good of a condition. Nowhere near as good as it was last year, where we had a really hot, dry weekend. As they're just going through the national anthem on the grid, as we're 15 minutes away from the start of this Grand Prix. And one final thing, of course, that we need to quickly talk about. Obviously, it's not been officially confirmed, but it is pretty much confirmed by obviously a top journalist that Isaac Hadjar will be racing most likely for Red Bull in 2026. Something I think we both saw coming. What do you think of that move? But also with Tsunoda and Lawson, who do you think will get that second Racing Bull seat? Because it looks like Lindblad is pretty much a lock in for one of those seats.
Yeah, not a huge surprise, of course, that Hadjar is going to be in the Red Bull next season. I mean, they just got to keep throwing drivers at the problem. I mean, Tsunoda was having a decent weekend this weekend. But for the second seat, I honestly think it's Yuki would be best to try get himself out of the Red Bull program.
Yeah.
Do I think that's going to happen? I'm not sure, but I mean, who knows? If Lawson puts in a great performance today, he could all of a sudden, really catapult his chances of keeping his seat for next season. Do I think he probably deserves to? No. It probably should be Tsunoda and Lindblad in the Racing Bull next year. Because I mean, Lawson just plays dodgem cars too much. He really does.
The thing is, as well, though, with Tsunoda, is even though he's had a bad year, we know what he's capable of if he has a car that actually is drivable a lot of the time. I mean, people forget, at the first Grand Prix this season, Tsunoda was 5th on the grid in that Racing Bulls car. Yeah. So, and Tsunoda, if he had stayed in that car this season, I think there's a decent chance Yuki could have had maybe a podium or a top 5 result. So, Tsunoda hasn't just turned into an awful driver overnight. Of course, he's had a bad season. He has been one of the worst drivers this season. But if you put him in like a Racing Bulls or an Aston Martin, like a proper solid midfield outfit, I don't see why he doesn't perform like he was in 2023, 2024, and at the very start of this year. I mean, look at Alex Albon. After his stint at Red Bull, especially in 2020, Albon was not exactly highly rated. That's why he wasn't on the grid for a year. Now look how we look at him. Now he's been at Williams for a few years. So, yeah, I think it will probably just come down to how they perform, Lawson and Tsunoda, but I personally hope it is Tsunoda and Lindblad, because we know Tsunoda is better than Lawson, because they were teammates, a few races last year, and Tsunoda proved to be the better. Lawson occasionally can score points and get great results, but it's just he's not as consistent at that. I think Lawson is good enough to be on the grid, but I don't think he's good enough to the point where he's an absolute shoo-in, like your Hulkenbergs are on the Formula One grid. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, hopefully Isaac Hadjar has a good time at Red Bull next year. But we have no idea what Red Bull are going to even look like next year. Obviously, the new regulations. If Tsunoda, though, does drop off the grid, I would not be surprised if he ends up being the Aston Martin test driver next year, because, I mean, it's already confirmed that Alonso and Stroll is the lineup next year. Obviously, Stroll is on a forever rolling contract. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens there. Alpine, for their second seat, are having an internal battle between, I think, Paul Aron and Colapinto. Some rumours that Flavio might be fed up with Colapinto after yesterday's crash, so maybe we'll see the Estonian Paul Aron in Formula One next year, who's he had a pretty decent F2 season last year, so we'll see what happens there. But we've got just under 10 minutes to go, guys, until the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. So let me just read out final few comments, and then let's get into this Grand Prix. KH, Racing Bull's best midfield team. You'd still have to say Williams. I think fundamentally that Williams car is the best midfield car. The reason Williams don't appear a lot of the time to be that quick is because they haven't developed that car really at all, because they're focusing so much on next year. Mr. Stroll limp-wristed. Indeed. James Vowles has just said that some weather might be on the way around an hour from now. Hopefully, but I've heard it all before. And yeah, there is a chance of rain of about 10%. So we'll see. We did have a very brief shower in qualifying yesterday that lasted, I think, like 2 or 3 minutes. So maybe it will be the same as that. Let me just scroll up a bit. I will have one saying, thank God David Croft isn't commentating. Indeed. And yeah, Michael Jones earlier saying 7 crashes we had in qualifying. And yeah, the only other qualifying in Baku I can remember that was that bad was 2019, where we had, again, multiple drivers crashing, and we had 2 drivers crash at the castle section, which is why it was such a long qualifying, because they had to repair the barrier forever. I think it was Kubica and then Leclerc. So, yeah. It was, I think I saw someone on X yesterday saying that it was, yesterday's session was longer than every race this season. I'm not sure if that's actually true or not, but yeah, it was pretty long. But before we get into this race, a couple of things I want to go through quickly. Firstly, just want to let you guys know that I do have a page where you guys can donate if you want to support the channel further. It's called Buy Me a Coffee. You can go to my page. The link is in the description. Also, I'm sure Rook, my moderator, is posting the link in the chat. If you want to donate to the channel and support the channel further and support it financially, you can go to that page and donate whatever amount you want. It can be a one-time donation and you can attach a message to it, or you can do a monthly donation, like a monthly subscription of like £4 or £5. Your choice. But if you want to support the channel, make sure to go there and do that. It would be very much appreciated. But quickly, let's finish up this poll in the chat, where I asked you guys who will win the Azerbaijan Grand Prix today. 148 votes, and pretty clearly 74% of the vote has gone to Max Verstappen. 14% for Norris, 11% for Leclerc, 1% for George Russell. It is very likely that Verstappen will win. Let's see if he will take what would be his second win in Baku. And it'd be Red Bull's fourth win in Baku in the last 5 races here. So we'll see if they can do it. Anyway, let's get on to some final bits of information ahead of this race, and we'll start with the championship standings. Oscar Piastri, 31 points clear of Lando Norris. Max Verstappen, 94 points off the lead in 3rd. Russell then in 4th. Leclerc 5th. Hamilton 6th. Albon now ahead of Antonelli in the championship in 7th. Antonelli 8th. Hadjar 1 point ahead of Hulkenberg in 9th, with Hulkenberg just about completing the top 10. On the Constructors' side, McLaren can win the Constructors' Championship today. All they've got to do is outscore Ferrari by 9 points, which is still doable, despite their grid position. And they will be Constructors' Champions for a 2nd year running. Ferrari in 2nd, 20 points clear of Mercedes 3rd. And then Red Bull just over 20 points behind in 4th. Red Bull, with their performance lately, might start to get into that battle for 2nd in the championship. Williams in 5th. 24 points clear of Aston Martin 6th. Racing Bulls only a point behind. Big day for Racing Bulls, where they could very much overtake Aston Martin. Sauber in 8th, Haas in 9th, and Alpine last of all. Now let's go on to some key stats ahead of this race regarding the front-running teams. McLaren, of course, won last year's Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Their only win in Baku, and that was with Oscar Piastri. And last year's result was 1st and 4th. Would be an amazing result today if they got that from 7th and 9th on the grid. Can they even get on the podium? We'll see. For Red Bull, their last win in Baku was 2 years ago with Sergio Perez, and they have taken 3 wins in Baku since 2021. Last year, there was a disaster. 5th and a DNF. Surely they can do a lot better than that today. Ferrari, despite having so many pole positions, have never won the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and their last win in Formula 1 was nearly a year ago. It was in October of last year, October 2024. Last year, it was 2nd in a DNF. They were so close to winning, but ended up finishing 2nd. Can they even get on the podium today? We'll find out. And as for Mercedes, their last race win in Baku was 6 years ago with Valtteri Bottas. They have taken 3 wins in Baku since we started racing here 9 years ago. Last year, 3rd and 9th it was. Surely they can do a bit better than that. But let's go through your starting grid for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. On the front row, the ex-teammates from Toro Rosso 2 years ago, Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz. On the second row, Liam Lawson, for the first time in his career starting this high up on the grid, and Kimi Antonelli. On the third row, George Russell and Yuki Tsunoda both have never won here in Baku. On the fourth row, Lando Norris and Isaac Hadjar. And completing the top 10, the 2 men who were 1st and 2nd in this Grand Prix last year, Oscar Piastri, your championship leader, and Charles Leclerc. 11th and 12th, the ex-McLaren teammates from nearly 20 years ago, Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton. Hamilton, of course, has won here before, 7 years ago. 13th and 14th, Gabriel Bortoleto and Lance Stroll. 15th and 16th, Oliver Behrman and Franco Colapinto. On the penultimate row, Nico Hülkenberg and Pierre Gasly. And then Alex Albon will be the last on the grid, and Esteban Ocon, disqualified from qualifying for a rear wing infraction, will start from the pit lane. But we are just moments away from getting underway, as everyone on mediums except for Verstappen, Russell, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Bortoleto, Behrman, Hülkenberg, Gasly, and Ocon, who are on hard tyres. That is very interesting that Max is on hard tyres to start. I was not expecting that. So,
I think that's a good decision considering he shouldn't be under too much threat at the start.
yeah, given that there's 2 cars between him and the Mercedes, that might just pay off for him. We'll see. But
also, when you said that that we've been racing here for 9 years, I did throw up a little bit in my mouth.
yeah,
I can't lie. The fact that we're going to have another 4 here is disgraceful.
yeah, as if you guys don't know, we're racing here until 2030, as the contract was extended yesterday. And yeah, I'm just going through quickly and updating who's on the hard compound tyre. Not surprised that Lewis Hamilton's starting on that tyre. There's nothing to lose with him. Mercedes have split their strategy, which Mercedes have done quite a bit in the past. So not necessarily surprised from them either. And then who else do we have? Hülkenberg, Gasly, and Ocon on the hard tyres as well. And no surprise that Ocon's on the hard tyres starting from the pit lane. I really thought Albon would start on the hard tyres, starting in 19th, but clearly Williams happy with the medium. Williams do tend to go quite long with their first stint, as we saw at the last Grand Prix. As the formation lap begins right now, and Verstappen on those hard tyres pulls away. It is the shortest run into turn 1 on the calendar, but Max will still have a tyre disadvantage compared to the medium of Sainz alongside him into turn 1. But again, it is the shortest run, so the shortest chance that Max will lose the lead because of that slight disadvantage of grip off the line. And as Rook said in the chat, 11 of the 20 cars are on mediums, 9 of them are on the hard tyres, almost a 50-50 split. As it appears, for now, that Isaac Hadjar is okay. We'll see if he does report any more issues, but he is still 8th in the pack. As the front 4-5 cars just coming through the last couple corners before the castle section. As Max Verstappen now exits that section. This is actually the first time that Max Verstappen has started a race in Baku on pole. He started on the front row here before, but he's never started from pole position. As we've had 4 different winners of this race in the last, I think, 5 races here. Sergio Perez, of course, winning this twice. He'll be back on the grid next year, and I'm sure he's absolutely delighted that Baku is on the calendar for another few years. As there is Max's father, Jos, in the garage, expectant of yet another race win. As now, Verstappen and Sainz and Lawson are now warming their tyres up down the pit straight. Pretty long formation lap this is going to be, because the pack obviously strung out quite a bit. As here is Oscar Piastri, who now enters the pit straight.
Yeah, Ocon would have just got to turn 15 now, so
Yeah.
Gonna be waiting a while.
Yeah, probably waiting another minute. As there is the Williams team boss on the pit wall. And now the front 6 now lined up on the grid. And there is Esteban Ocon on the hard tyres, warming his tyres up. And he's at the very back of the pack. And yeah, he's just going to enter the pit lane in a moment once he can. As now, the second half of the grid line up for yet another edition of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And Ocon is actually starting on the grid. I thought he'd be starting from the pit lane, considering he was disqualified from qualifying, but there you go. So Albon and Ocon will be the last 2 cars on the grid. Max on pole, Sainz second. What craziness do we have ahead of us today? Lights are on. It's 3, 4, 5 lights. And away we go. Brilliant start from Max Verstappen covering off Carlos Sainz as the 2 Mercedes side by side. And Antonelli keeps ahead as Lando Norris tries to go round the outside of Yuki Tsunoda. And up the inside there goes Isaac Hadjar of, I think, Piastri. As they now... And Tsunoda has got ahead of George Russell as they go up to turn 3. And Russell up the inside of Tsunoda. And he gets the move done.
Piastri's done a web up. He's last.
Yeah, I was wondering where he was because I can only see one McLaren in the pack. And yet it appears that Piastri is at the back somewhere. We'll see what position in a moment. There's a car there trying to go around the outside. I think Bortoletto, but he's had to cut the corner. Piastri's in the wall. He's out. He's put it in the barrier. Is it at the same corner as yesterday? No, it's not. It's at turn 5, and that is going to be a safety car. What a disaster that is. So Hadjar has got ahead of Norris, and then it's 9th and 10th for the 2 Ferrari cars. And yet, safety car now deployed. We'll have to see. Maybe Piastri got some damage that caused him to go in the barrier, or maybe got pushed in the barrier. We'll see. But he gets out, and his race is run. What an absolute disaster of a Grand Prix weekend for the championship leader. And here it is, into turn 5. Locks the inside front and just goes straight on. That is a very poor mistake. Just way too much speed carried into the corner. Yeah, that was way too quick compared to the other cars. Unless he had a braking issue. I really don't understand why he was going that deep into the corner. But there you go. Oscar Piastri out of the race. And for Lando Norris, he must now capitalise. But we're on lap 2, safety car deployed, as we've got a car coming into the pit lane towards the back. And it's Ocon getting rid of those hard tyres. But it's Verstappen leading from Sainz, Lawson, Antonelli, Russell, Tsunoda, Hadjar, Norris, Leclerc, Hamilton. And then Alonso is in 11th with Bortoletto 12th, Stroll 13th, Colapinto 14th. And then Behrman, Gasly, Hulkenberg, Ocon, and Albon. Albon also pitting to get rid of... He was on the mediums. He's now going on to another set of medium tyres. I don't really know why they pitted him then, to be honest. But Piastri is out as the tractor is just pulling the McLaren out of the barrier. As Verstappen, we're just looking at his visor cam as he's behind the safety car. Hopefully the safety car will only last maybe 3-4 laps before we're back underway. But Nib, from the replay you saw, was it driver error or an issue with the brakes?
Yeah, driver error. Driver error. It's weird. It looks like he was coasting into there and then just locked up and went straight on. Interesting to see what happened at the start. Bernie Collins is saying that he potentially jumped the start, went to settle down, and that's why he's done a Mark Webber. Which, yeah, you'll better see now. Yeah, so he jumped the start and just stayed there. So it was going to be a fucking nightmare no matter what.
Yeah, he had to stop again and then just went absolutely nowhere. Good move by Hadjar, by the way, up the inside of Norris at turn 2, and then Norris had to defend hard from Leclerc. And yeah, Norris really did not have a good start. Hadjar nearly got past, or was having a go at Tsunoda into turn 4. So Hadjar, clearly, those issues are fixed, and he's now focusing intently on this Grand Prix now. Here's a replay, and yeah, that was quite a bad jump start from Piastri, and quite an obvious one. And he fell, as we said, to the very back. And Alonso, did he also jump the start? He might have stopped because thought he was going to hit the back of Piastri, but it kind of felt like he jumped the start as well, maybe.
Yeah, he just followed Piastri. Alonso definitely jumped the start.
So we'll see what happens there. That was a replay of Bortoletto, who was trying to go round the outside of Alonso at that turn 5, but then cut the chicane. And then Piastri clearly thought he had a lot more grip. Or there was a lot more grip out there than there was. He was on the racing line. It's not like he was on the dirtiest side of the track, but yeah, just way too much speed and into the barrier. As he did actually, even though he fell to the back, he had already made up 2 or 3 positions by turn 5, and then, yeah, just straight on. And then contact there between Hulkenberg and Behrman. Quite hefty contact. Looks like there might have been a bit of debris deposited as Gasly then went around the outside. Here's a replay. Hulkenberg, yeah, just understeered. Hopefully Behrman's car is okay. Those two were teammates for Haas at this Grand Prix last year. And yeah, a bit of the side of Behrman's car, I think, fell off. So a lot going on out there on that first lap. But on lap 3 out of 51, soon to be lap 4, we are under a safety car, and Oscar Piastri, the championship leader, is out the races there, just fixing the barrier, making sure it's absolutely stable. And because Piastri is out, Lando Norris is currently 8th. If he finishes there, I'd be very surprised if he finishes there, but if he does, the gap will go down to 27 points. Even though we talked about Verstappen having a very low chance of the championship, which I still think is the case, even if he wins this. If he does win, then he will be
69.
Yeah, 69 points behind, which is a lot more possible, but still, again, very unlikely.
Well, I said he's going to need help from the McLarens, and, well, that's some way to start it, isn't it?
As hopefully, in the next couple laps or so, we will get back underway as we're looking at Liam Lawson, visor cam. He had a pretty steady start.
I mean, I thought Oscar just done a classic Mark Webber where he's just forgotten to lift the handbrake off the start, but no, he's jumped to the bloody start, gone down to last, put it in the wall. I mean, that's got to be one of the worst race starts I've ever seen.
Yeah,
I'm disgusted at my own driver. Like, what the flippity hell did I just watch?
From the start of Q3 to then, that's probably the worst, by far the worst we've seen from him. That was, yeah, pretty rubbish. But we'll see what happens from now, whether he will get away with it in terms of the championship. But let me just update that, what do you call it? Yeah, all the positions are correct. Safety car is in at the end of this lap. Max Verstappen is now letting the safety car, as the safety car turns its lights out, he's now letting the safety car go off into the distance. And now controls the pack. Remember, it's a long run down to the start-finish line, and you're not allowed to overtake until the start-finish line. And we have seen here before, especially with Max, that he will just wait as long as possible, if needs be, until pretty much the start-finish line to get going again. One thing he doesn't want to do is give any cars behind a run on him, even though they can't overtake him until the start-finish line, because they can still have a go, obviously, into turn 1. As Max continuing to weave, as they now are fully on the pit straight. And Max will just keep doing this, probably until right before the start-finish line. And no, he does it quite a bit sooner, and he gets going pretty much on the DRS activation point as we are back underway on lap 5 as Russell and Antonelli side by side. Russell goes around the outside, but Antonelli comes back up the inside, squeezes his teammate out, and that costs Russell and loses position to Tsunoda. And to Hadjar as well? No, not quite. So Antonelli nearly squeezed
got
it
Norris.
as, Leclerc has overtaken Norris. Norris has had a horrible race so far, gone from 7th down to 9th, and now he's trying to have a go back at Leclerc. And he's got Lewis Hamilton right behind him in the second Ferrari, of course, on hard compound tyres, as Max Verstappen already a second clear of Carlos Sainz, as Alonso is, I think, under investigation at the moment for jumping the start. He'll probably get a penalty for that. As the pack now come through unscathed into the castle section. But yeah, Max already 1.3 seconds clear of Sainz, and now 1.4. He really is pushing hard and pulling the gap. Exactly what he needs to do. Because remember, after one lap, DRS will be active. And the last thing Max wants is to have cars closer to him than he needs. He needs to build the gap whilst his other rivals are stuck in traffic. As Hulkenberg has gone up to 15th, Gasly 16th, as here is Lando Norris, as Leclerc passes Hadjar. I think Hadjar made a mistake at turn 16, and Alonso has got a 5-second penalty. And here comes the pack down the pit straight on lap 6. And Norris, side by side with Hadjar, goes round the outside, but Hadjar's still up the inside. I thought he was going to lock up and go wide, but he did not. And Norris is up to 8th. And Hamilton now trying to have a go at Hadjar, forcing the Frenchman to go defensive. And now Lewis has got the DRS to slipstream. So has Hadjar. Hamilton going round the outside, much more grip. But Hadjar keeps the inside line. Great defending. And Isaac still in 9th place. But already DRS is active. Max Verstappen, though, well over a second clear of Carlos Sainz. But I think everyone behind him, except for Carlos Sainz, has got DRS. As here's a replay of the restart and how Leclerc got past Norris, and they both got caught out by the restart, but then Leclerc got right in the slipstream, right around the outside, and more confidence and got the move done. Good move by Leclerc. And that's key for Leclerc because Ferrari probably have enough pace, especially with Leclerc in that car, to finish ahead of McLaren. As Russell, they're swearing on the radio, Antonelli pushing him out nearly into the barrier on the restart of that race, that he definitely would not have been happy about that. As we begin. Lap 7, as Lawson really getting close to Sainz, as Russell now trying to have a go at Tsunoda, both on the hard tyre. Antonelli, interestingly, does the fastest lap for 1:47.0. Obviously helped by DRS compared to Verstappen out front. But Russell has got to get past Tsunoda, because Tsunoda has already dropped over a second behind Antonelli. So we're looking at Lewis Hamilton stuck behind Hadjar. Hadjar, though, has DRS from the back of Norris, as Russell still crawling all over the back of the Red Bull of Tsunoda. Tsunoda really struggling in these early laps, as Alonso's been told that he's got a penalty for jumping the start. And he says, yeah, Copia reacted to Piastri, which, of course, we saw. As another position change, Colapinto has had a good race so far. He's up to 13th. Head of Lance Stroll. Remember, Colapinto had was it 8th place? I think it was here last year for Williams. And he's going well so far. As we're about to begin lap 8, Verstappen nearly a second and a half clear of Carlos Sainz. Carlos Sainz keeping up well with Max. He's not letting Max get that far ahead. He's only losing, I think, a 10th here, 10th there. So Williams look pretty good at the minute. As Antonelli, DRS on the back of Lawson. Russell nowhere near. Tsunoda, here comes Lando Norris on Leclerc. Can he get a move done? No. Hamilton up the inside of Hadjar. Great move. Norris, though, trying to force Leclerc into defence, but he couldn't quite do it. But that was a good move from Hamilton. He's up to 9th place. Norris, not close enough, I think, up to turn 3 to go for a move. And no, he's not, as Alonso has been overtaken by Bortoleto. As Carlos Sainz has now done the fastest lap. Are you surprised him how quick this Williams is? He's not really letting Max get away.
I think Max has taken it easy because he's just responded with her purple first sector.
Yeah, we'll see. He is on, we have to remember, a different compound. He's on the harder compound. So, as you say, might be saving that tyre quite a bit, because he might be going probably another 20 laps before he makes a pit stop. As Lewis Hamilton up to 9th. He is, of course, on the hard compound tyre. The highest placed hard tyre runner, of course, Max Verstappen in the lead. And as it stands, with the Constructors' Championship, as they just showed on the broadcast, it will continue to Singapore, as McLaren are only scoring 4 points at the minute, and Ferrari are actually outscoring them currently in this race, as Russell looks a bit closer to Tsunoda on this occasion. Down to turn 1. Is Russell going to get the inside? Tsunoda covers the middle aggressively. And Russell decides not to go for it. Max Verstappen, there he go, responds. 46-1. Fastest lap. And this is really hurting George Russell's race. He's 2.5 seconds behind Antonelli. And losing time all the time. As we're now on lap 9 of 51. But Lewis Hamilton in 9th. He is on the hard compound tyre. In 11th place, Bortoleto. Keep an eye out for him. Obviously, he's been brilliant this season. He's on the hard tyre as well. In 11th, Alonso 12th on the medium. Colapinto on the medium. Stroll on the medium. And then Hulkenberg, Gasly, and Behrman on the hard. Then Albon on the medium. And Ocon on the hard compound tyre.
Max is comfortable now.
Yeah, he's starting to really pull the gap. 2.1 seconds it is now. Liam Lawson, I've got to say, doing well. He's pulled over a second clear of Antonelli. About 1.2 seconds, 1.3 nearly clear of Antonelli. As still we look at this battle of Russell and Tsunoda. Russell not as close on this occasion. He's still going to have a look, though. Tsunoda's still going to have to defend to the middle. And comes across. Russell will get a better exit. And gets a run on Tsunoda. Now up to turn 2. Russell's just got to do the switchback and then absolutely floor it. And that's exactly what he's done. DRS open. Can Russell get this move done? Up to turn 3. Yes, he does. Tsunoda gives it up. And crucially for Russell's race, he is 5th and now can push after his teammate who's only 2.5 seconds up the road. As Lando Norris is still stuck behind Leclerc, only half a second behind. Leclerc and Norris are nearly 10 seconds off the lead after, 10 laps. So by the time we get to the first pit stop phase, they're going to be about a pit stop behind Max Verstappen at this rate. But in terms of the podium, looking trickier, I think, for them because Sainz and Lawson have been a lot quicker in this race so far than we expected. As what did that radio message say? Something about it would rain in 20 minutes. I think it said.
Yeah, and there may be some rain in the next 20 minutes.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. That was to, I think, Oliver Behrman.
Yep.
As we now begin lap 11. Verstappen now just over 2.5 seconds clear of Carlos Sainz, who's nearly 2 seconds clear of Lawson. Lawson about second clear of Antonelli. Tsunoda is going to be under pressure very quickly from Leclerc and Norris in the next couple laps. And Lewis Hamilton as well, who's right on the back of Norris. 40 laps to go. But Lando Norris has got to at least finish in the top 5 to take a good amount of points out of Piastri. But, I mean, really, he's got to be aiming for at least a podium if he really wants to swing it back in. Well, not quite in his favour, but swing it so that it's back to being close. As Max told, keep on top of the management. And yeah, we have Leclerc, Norris, and Hamilton all stuck behind Tsunoda. So Tsunoda, one of the only drivers out there that's struggling on the hard tyre, either because he's struggling on the hard tyre or he's just genuinely not quick. We have seen with Tsunoda, he's not been very quick in the races or in, well, qualifying a lot of the time. But yeah, he's been the slowest of the top 10 in this race so far. As the pack exit turn 16. Max Verstappen. And you can see there actually on the tyre age, he's on 5 lap fresher tyres compared to Sainz and Lawson. That's one of the new sets they have. Obviously, Williams used a lot of mediums in qualifying yesterday, so that, I'm sure, is helping quite a bit. Him extend his lead now to about 3 seconds. As Antonelli is closing on Lawson. He's now got DRS. But probably won't be able to go for a move on Lawson until we get back to the pit straight. Russell is closing on Antonelli. The gap was 2.5 seconds. It's now about 1.5 seconds. So Russell clearly is quite a bit quicker than his young Italian teammate. And if Antonelli wants the podium today, he needs to really get past Lawson in the next couple laps to try and get away from the pack behind. As Antonelli suffers quite a bit in the dirty air as they come down to turn 15. And Russell now got the gap down to 1.3. So really catching quickly is Russell, as Leclerc has actually dropped a second behind Tsunoda now. So he's outside of the DRS. And that is really bad for Leclerc and Norris for their races, because the longer they're held up behind Tsunoda, they're just going to keep losing lots of time. Not just to Verstappen, but to the 2 Mercedes cars as well, who are gradually pulling away. Now on lap 13, Verstappen almost 3.5 seconds clear of Sainz. As Russell now does a fastest lap of the Grand Prix. Another battle out there. Alonso and Bortoletto fighting for 11th, as Oliver Behrman has just overtaken Pierre Gasly for 16th. As we look at Antonelli trying to get close to Lawson. I wouldn't be surprised if Antonelli is told to move out the way in these next couple laps, because Russell looks a lot quicker. And Antonelli doesn't really look like he's going anywhere at the minute. Here's a replay.
Yeah, I'd be doing that now.
Yeah. Because, I mean, Antonelli is he's nowhere near close enough through the corners to really be getting close down the pit straight. So, and as I said, they need to make sure they utilize the time now where Leclerc and Norris are stuck to get away. As Antonelli, I don't think has DRS. And Russell, I think, does. And yes, he does. On lap 14. The pit window for the medium tyres, I think, opens in the next couple laps. So, Sainz, Lawson, Antonelli, Leclerc's, Norris's, Hadjar's might be coming into the pits in the next 7 or 8 laps. As this is Stroll, stuck behind Colapinto. Colapinto now holding up a boatload of cars. Stroll, Hulkenberg, Behrman, Gasly, Albon, and Ocon. As Colapinto already 5 seconds behind Alonso, so clearly quite far off the pace compared to the other midfield runners. And yeah, Russell, we're on board with him now. Really starting to get held up. And the call needs to be made if Mercedes are to get at least one car on the podium here. Because not only are they keeping themselves in a bad position, but Carlos Sainz is getting away. Sainz is nearly 3.5 seconds ahead of Lawson in second place. As Antonelli on this occasion will have DRS, but he's nowhere near close enough to actually go for a move. So both Mercedes hunting down the Racing Bulls of Lawson. And Antonelli has a little look. But doesn't bother.
Gotta say, Sainz's pace is really impressive. I mean, second fastest driver on that lap, only behind Verstappen.
He's really, really these as Albon. They're passing Pierre Gasly. Yeah, these last couple laps, or 2-3 laps especially, he's really started to pull away from the rest. Compared to that Tsunoda Leclerc Norris battle, he is, I think, 6 or 7 seconds ahead of them. So, finally, the Carlos Sainz that we were expecting for this year has finally showed up. And he showed up at a great time. Remember, Williams have not, even though they've been great this season, Williams still have not had a podium this season. Maybe today is that day. As Stroll has passed Colapinto, and yeah, Albon up to 17th. Albon, even though he's good friends with Sainz, I think he will still be very disappointed if Sainz gets a podium today after being ahead of Carlos for almost the whole season. But still a long way to go. We're not even halfway through this race. Still could have a safety car red flag, which could massively change things in this Grand Prix. But on lap 16, Max Verstappen leads by 4.5 seconds over Carlos Sainz, as Russell and Antonelli still stuck behind Lawson, and Mercedes have got to make a decision here. Either pit Antonelli, and now as I think the medium tyre runners pit window is now opened, either pit Antonelli or tell Antonelli to get out of the way, because they're costing themselves here. As here is Stroll. He's now behind Colapinto, so Colapinto presumably got back ahead as Albon now pits. presumably to get the hard tyres on. He did already pit to put another set of medium tyres on. And yeah, Albon going for the hard tyres. So he'll be going to the end of this race. So that's going to get the midfield teams in the pits. As still, Team Mercedes stuck behind. As, yeah, Russell now saying on the radio, I think I've got a tyre advantage to get past Lawson. And they say copy that. So,
Yeah. Get the Tory through already.
let's see what they do.
By the way, how's Hamilton dropped like 3 seconds behind Norris, by the way?
Yeah, he was only like a second or so behind not that long ago. And yeah, he's now, Hadjar's now catching him. Yeah, no idea. He should, on that tyre, he should really be right up behind Norris.
I think he's made a mistake. He lost a second and a half that last lap, so he had to make a mistake somewhere.
As on lap 17, Mercedes decide to do nothing. But they are still stuck. As here is Ocon overtaking Gasly, his ex-teammate Alpine, and up the inside at turn 2. He would have enjoyed that one. And now both Haas's are now line astern in 16th and 17th. Haas have a lot more pace. And I think there is that mistake from Hamilton just there. Haas have a lot more pace than they showed in qualifying. As Colapinto now pits and comes out just ahead as there's Piastri watching the race go by. Colapinto comes out barely ahead of Alex Albon. Albon now gets past him. Crucial for Albon's race. And now Colapinto gets back past. Obviously teammates at Williams last year. So that puts the two Haas's up to 15th and 16th. As we had a yellow flag briefly there. And it's for Colapinto, who...
You watched Albon absolutely punt Colapinto.
All right. I didn't actually see it. I just looked away at the wrong time. But, they'll show a replay, I'm sure, in a moment. As, we're on lap 18 now. And no movement in the top 10 in terms of any pit stops. Here we go. Down to turn 5. Piastri would have got a great view of this from that seat. And Albon. The door was always closing and he refused to accept it. And he's lost his end fence. So well done to Alex Albon for completely destroying his race. I feel sorry for Colapinto. He's actually having a pretty decent race. And then, been punted off by his ex-teammate. So Albon should get a penalty for that at some point. Max Verstappen still 4.5 seconds clear of Sainz. Sainz, though, now 4.5 seconds clear of Lawson. Carlos Sainz still doing very well. And Carlos is about, I think, 7 seconds ahead of Tsunoda. And nearly 10 seconds ahead of Norris is Carlos Sainz. That's basically half a pit stop ahead is the Williams ahead of the McLaren. So Williams genuinely have got the pace today to finish on the podium, but will they finish on the podium? Still a long way to go. Yellow flag somewhere out there as in comes Antonelli. to get rid of the medium compound tyre. And I think that yellow flag, yeah, it's not gone now. That would have been to clear the debris from Albon's front wing.
Yeah.
Antonelli now on hard tyres in 12th. Now Russell has got to push like mad, get past Lawson and start to put in some hot laps. As Antonelli is now 12th. Got a bit of a gap, Antonelli, so he can do some clean laps in clear air for a bit. As we're still looking at Tsunoda ahead of Leclerc and Norris. I said pre-race that Tsunoda was going to be the big issue for Leclerc and Norris if he had enough pace and straight line speed to keep ahead, and that's exactly what he's done. And he is destroying Leclerc and Norris's chances of finishing on the podium.
It's absolutely beautiful, if you ask me.
As Russell now immediately within a second of Lawson. He's not going to overtake him on this occasion, but next couple laps I can see it happening. As let me just update who's on what tyre compound in the top 10. Lewis Hamilton on the hard tyre. Hadjar on the medium. The hard tyre runners, by the way, should still go probably another 10 laps at least, if not another 15 laps into this race, as Leclerc pits. So he triggers the undercut. How will Red Bull respond? As Leclerc comes out about second and a half, 2 seconds behind Antonelli. So it's not actually too bad compared to Antonelli in terms of where he's come out. But Leclerc now in 12th place on the hard tyres. He tries to warm those tyres up. There's a nice gap where he's dropped into in between Antonelli and Stroll.
Yeah, that's very well done by Ferrari. Perfect time to pit him.
And we'll see if he can now jump Tsunoda, if Tsunoda does respond, as Russell pushing as hard as he can to get close to Lawson before we get to the pit straight. As with Lando Norris, I'm pretty confident McLaren, even though they're on the medium, I'm pretty confident they're going to go quite a bit longer into this race. That's normally what McLaren try to do when they're out of position, let's say. And looks like Liam Lawson, yeah, he is coming in. What a race so far for Lawson. Comfortably holding third. And can he somehow finish on the podium in this race? It is still very much doable. He's driving well. He's doing the best he can, but there are others out there in very quick cars. And there you go. Good pit stop. 2.3 seconds. Where will he come out in relation to Antonelli? He comes out ahead, but Antonelli's on much warmer tyres. And we'll get a great exit from turn 2. And Lawson is going to have to defend hard. Quite possibly up to turn 3. As Lawson warming the tyres up. And here comes Antonelli. But no, he just doesn't have enough straight line speed. That Racing Bulls car was one of the quickest cars down the straights in qualifying.
Wow. I mean, that's a great job by Lawson, because Antonelli did set the fastest lap.
Yeah, that is...
yeah.
That could be the difference between him being on the podium or not. Keeping ahead there. But Antonelli's still looking very, very fast on these much warmer tyres. But Lawson has come out in 10th place. As Antonelli fighting his car. He knows this is the chance if he's going to get past. Because he can't allow Lawson to settle into a pattern like he did earlier. But let's see how he does on the exit turn 16. And he's definitely close enough, I think, to have a look at Lawson as they come through the kinks. And yeah, he's definitely going to have a look at Lawson into turn 1. DRS open, and I don't think there's anything Lawson can do. Look at the overspeed from the Mercedes. Absolutely brilliant. And Antonelli is up to what is officially 9th place, but could be a net 3rd. As Alonso has pitted, he'll have to serve his penalty. And we'll see where Alonso comes out. Should be, as Albon has been given a penalty. Rightfully so. So Alonso comes out should come out in 17th place. And he does. He comes out just ahead of Alex Albon. Hopefully Albon doesn't do the same to him. But for Antonelli, crucial move. And that might be the difference between him getting on the podium. But according to AWS, if Russell pitted right now, Russell would come out ahead of Kimi Antonelli. Russell is putting in the laps to get himself on the podium. And Antonelli now has to continue to push. As we're on lap 23 of 51. Out front, Max Verstappen is almost 7 seconds clear of Carlos Sainz. George Russell 3rd. Russell is catching Carlos. So really, Russell should just stay out and just try and catch Carlos as much as possible. Because really, 2nd is what Mercedes need to aim for. But for Verstappen out front, he is looking incredibly comfortable. He is a pit stop ahead of Lewis Hamilton in 6th. And nearly a pit stop ahead of Norris, who is currently 5th. Hasn't pitted, obviously. As here is Alex Albon overtaking Fernando Alonso. Down the straight, Albon still has a penalty, though. Alonso at least has served his. So, Albon, 17th. For him, let me just update who is on what compound. So 2 of the top 3 on the hard compound tyre. Tsunoda on the hard. Norris is on the medium. Lewis Hamilton is on the hard compound tyre. So is Bortoleto. So is Antonelli. And Lawson. And, of course, Leclerc. Stroll on the medium. Hülkenberg on the hard. We only have 3 medium... not 3, 4 medium tyre runners out there. Which is Sainz, Norris, Hadjar, and Stroll. Who all have not pitted. Remember, though, everyone who started on the hard tyre will move on to, most likely, a set of mediums. So we will see the mediums... Probably, for say, Verstappen and others in the next 10-15 laps. As we're looking at Hülkenberg trying to get past Lance Stroll, but stuck.
Bear.
And looks like this is going to be one of them forever trains that you get in Baku.
Mm-hmm.
Bortoleto, though, doing a good job in 8th. He's only 3 seconds behind Hadjar. He's going to have Antonelli on his case in probably the next 2 or 3 laps. But yeah, Bortoleto is doing a good job. Bortoleto might just take a point if something happens to one of the usual runners. So we'll keep our eyes on Bortoleto, who's had a really good last few races. And is now regularly out-qualifying Hulkenberg, race in, race out, which I never thought would be happening this season. But he's been very impressive as Bortoleto, and he continues to keep it up. As lap 25, Max Verstappen, 7.5 seconds clear of Carlos Sainz. Russell is still catching Sainz, the gap down to 3.2 seconds.
Did you just see the rain radar then?
I think so.
It said rain starting in 3 minutes.
Well, fingers crossed that we'll get a load of that rain as still Hulkenberg, Behrman not going anywhere, as we're looking out at Leclerc, who's now just over a second behind Liam Lawson. And yeah, Leclerc has had a pretty, I wouldn't say awful race, but pretty boring one. Just been stuck behind other cars pretty much. But him pitting earlier will allow him to get into this race more. But I'd be surprised if it keeps him ahead of Lando Norris, him pitting sooner. Because once Lando comes out from his pit stop, even if he's behind, he's going to be a lot quicker. As Lando being told, tailwind in turn 16 is massive, you just have to back off the trail brake. And yeah, the wind still having a big effect, as Antonelli is right behind Bortoleto now, so he's going to overtake the Brazilian, probably down the straight. And DRS open. Antonelli up to 8th. Antonelli's doing exactly what he needs to do. But whether it'll be enough, we still don't know, really. As Hulkenberg looks a bit closer to Stroll, and down to turn 1, Stroll defends to the middle. Hulkenberg sends it around the outside, but he's going to do the switchback instead. And it doesn't work. He just didn't have the grip on the exit. But the rain looks like we're starting to have some raindrops fall. We've never had a wet race in Baku. So fingers crossed we're going to properly get one, as Max being told, brilliant pace, mate, keep chipping away. As Verstappen nearly 9 seconds clear of Carlos Sainz. Verstappen absolutely dominating this Grand Prix.
Verstappen has generally set the purple first sector for the last 8 laps in a row. So yeah, he's having a good afternoon.
Yeah, he's relentlessly pulling away from the rest of the field. He's 12 seconds about clear of Russell in third. Compared to Lando Norris, he is pretty much a pit stop clear now of Lando Norris.
And he's just done a 44.9, like, and that's at least half a second quicker than his best lap. So yeah, that's mega.
He's really showing or really utilizing the benefits of that hard tyre now, especially being a few laps younger tyres than Sainz behind him. As Sainz saying on the radio, please don't let Russell get within undercut range. Russell's only 2.5 seconds behind now, so they're going to have to decide what to do there, Williams. As Bortoleto comes in, first of the hard tyre runners, I think, to pit. And he comes out just behind Pierre Gasly. That's a shame. But he is now on the medium. We'll see what he can do now on that tyre. But He's now in 16th place, as now Leclerc is behind Lawson, but Leclerc not really looking likely to overtake in the next lap or so. As Stroll,
make it 9 laps in a row. I'm going to keep count here.
He
set the purple middle sector as well.
Yeah, his pace compared to Sainz. I mean, yeah, he's been pulling away, but he's really pulling away incredibly quickly now. He's now over 10 seconds clear. On lap 28, we're just over halfway through this Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And yeah, 1:44.8 fastest lap as Carlos Sainz pits. Great stint from Sainz. Goes onto the hard tyres. Can he secure his first podium of 2025 and the team's first podium? He comes out comfortably ahead of Hadjar and with lots of clear air, so now needs to get on with it and push hard. So Sainz in 6th place. So the top three, Verstappen, Russell and Tsunoda, all on hard tyres that they started on. The highest placed runner on the medium is Lando Norris, who of course also started on that tyre.
Make it 10.
We've seen this, I can't remember, there was another race, wasn't there, where he did like 10 or 12 fastest laps in a row.
That was it Paul Ricard?
I can't remember. It was a couple years ago, I think. But
I know Lewis had one at Paul Ricard. I think Max did as well.
It is incredible, the relentlessness. I remember that time, was it Mexico? Where he did
Mexico,
like the same lap time for like 40 laps. He is, and that's part of why he is the best. The consistency is unbelievable. As
he didn't go purple. This guy stinks.
lap 29, he's 12.5 clear of Russell, almost 20 seconds clear of Lando Norris. As Antonelli, right behind Hadjar, needs to get this move done, and he thought about sending it, but then thought against it. Can he try and get a run on Hadjar out turn 2? No, he's not going to. Hadjar gets a good exit. Hadjar still having a decent race, even though he lost a couple positions early on. As Bortoletto passes Pierre Gasly. As Behrman in the Haas pits.
And I'm sad to say that it stopped at 10.
As Hadjar saying we should pit before he overtakes me. And then they're telling him, we're looking after you, don't worry. So Hadjar concerned about the strategy there, as Behrman has now dropped to 18th place. And let me just update that Bortoletto is indeed on the medium compound tyre. Behrman should be as well, because he started on the hard compound tyre. As Verstappen on lap 30 is nearly 13 seconds clear. Russell still doing a very good pace. Russell, compared to Lando Norris, is about almost 7.5 seconds clear of Lando Norris. So I think Russell has covered off any threat from McLaren. As Hadjar now pits. Obviously started on the medium. Good stint there from Hadjar. And he's just looking to score points. And he goes on to the hard tyre. And can he get out ahead of Stroll? And Hulkenberg, yes, he can. That's crucial for his race. Stroll and Hulkenberg continue their battle. So Hadjar comes out in 10th place. So I think Hadjar at this point is pretty much guaranteed a points finish if everything just goes smoothly to the end. So everyone in the top 10 except for Lando Norris is on the hard compound tyre. As we're looking at Leclerc still stuck behind Lawson. The Ferrari today has not been good in the dirty air of other cars. We're stuck behind Tsunoda for a while, now stuck behind Lawson in 9th place. Ferrari are heading for a pretty low score for this Grand Prix. In terms of the Constructors' Championship, though, McLaren still would have to wait till Singapore. As Russell's saying, the tyre feels good. I think just keep extending. And yeah, Russell's pace is good, so I can see him probably going another 10 laps, to be honest. And Leclerc, yeah, not getting anywhere near Liam Lawson. Have you been surprised by Ferrari and McLaren's lack of pace, or is it just being stuck in traffic too long that's ruined them?
Combination of both for sure. I mean, it's been quite surprising. I mean, I get that he's on the medium now, but that Norris sort of stayed where he is compared to Sonoda. He's started to gain a little bit actually last few laps, but it's once Leclerc pitted, he didn't really gain in at all, which I was expecting him to do.
Yeah, Norris is just over a second and a half behind Tsunoda. Tsunoda, this is probably the best race that Tsunoda has had all season. So we'll see where Yuki ends up. As Max Verstappen out front. If Max was to pit now, Max would come out, I think, just ahead of his teammate. As Oliver Behrman now does the fastest lap of the race, 1:44.6. As also Alex Albon has passed Gasly in the Alpine. As we are now on lap 32. So 20 laps remain. Looks pretty sure as to who's going to win, but in terms of the podium, it's still very much up for grabs. Russell looks likely to finish on the podium, but after that, that final podium spot looks like it's between Sainz, Antonelli, Tsunoda, and Norris, probably, you could throw in there as well. So we could get...
I think it should be Sainz.
Yeah. Sainz is about half a pit stop behind Norris at the minute. Depends how much longer Lando goes and what his pace is like, but we'll see. But I think the good thing for Sainz is that he's got a really good amount of clear air, so he's really able to utilize those tyres. But if Russell was to pit now, I think he would come out behind Sainz, but I'm pretty sure Russell would beat Sainz in this race. But third, definitely doable. It's Max Verstappen begins lap 33. He's in the pit window, but there's no reason to pit. As there is Yuki Tsunoda running along in third. And the benefit that Tsunoda has is that obviously he'll go onto the faster compound for the final stint. But if he can pit a lap later than Lando and cover off Lando, then he's covered that position off, and then he can hopefully you'd think, pull away. And maybe then Tsunoda can fight for a podium position. We'll see. As Leclerc still stuck behind Lawson. Lawson having a brilliant race. And Lawson is currently what about 11, 12 seconds behind Carlos Sainz. It's going to be close, I think, between Lawson and the two Ferraris at the end of this race.
He's only 8 seconds behind Sainz. If you need help, I can just see here.
Yeah, I was trying to work it
because it
out.
gives me
Sorry.
the proper gap.
All right. But yeah, it looks like, as I said, Sainz, Antonelli, Tsunoda, Norris are probably the contenders for the final podium spot. But after that, it looks like it's Racing Bulls versus Ferrari for what? The 7th, 8th, 9th. As we've got just over 15 laps remaining. And remember, Racing Bulls are only 1 point behind Aston Martin in the championship. As it stands, they'll be ahead of Aston Martin in the championship by about 4 points. So every point they can get is crucial. For Williams, if they can take a podium here, that would pretty much guarantee that they'll finish 5th in the championship. So obviously they're desperate for that. The only thing with Williams that I will say is they've had a great season, but if only they had decided for the fun of it to develop this car a lot more than they have, it'd be really interesting to see just how quick they'd be by now, because they have not touched the car since I think Imola in terms of upgrades. So just shows you how good that car is fundamentally. As Bortoletto has just passed Ocon the 13th. As is a replay of Lewis Hamilton just about clipping the barrier on the exit of turn 15. Yeah, only just. As Hamilton running in 5th, but Hamilton, I think, likely probably to finish in 9th place in this race, which, well, for Ferrari, 8th and 9th is currently probably what they're heading for, and that would be a disastrous result.
Hamilton's just had no pace on that hard tyre after he caught up to the back of Norris. I mean, he's still losing time, and Norris is on the medium on lap 35.
When pretty much everyone else who still hasn't pitted on the hard is doing pretty much their best pace. It's, yeah. As Verstappen, 14 seconds clear of Russell now. Well, it's what I said in that video I did in it last week. He's finished.
Yeah.
That's the simple crux of it. Is that's a good move from Bortoletto round the outside of Ocon, and the next two cars he needs to overtake are right ahead of him, which is Stroll and Hulkenberg still having their battle. Bortoletto passes Hulkenberg. Hulkenberg lets him through as Albon overtakes Ocon. Albon still has that penalty to serve. But Bortoletto up to 12th, Ocon down to 15th. As Bortoletto on the medium. And Sauber would hope he can pass Stroll pretty quickly. As doesn't look like Leclerc, honestly, is going to pass Lawson in for the rest of this race. That Ferrari looks absolutely awful, quite frankly.
No, Leclerc will certainly be stuck there unless Lawson makes a mistake.
been really disappointing with Ferrari ever since the summer break. They looked like they might have got the win in Hungary, then it all fell apart, and then since the summer break, they've just been absolutely nowhere in terms of results. Not necessarily pace, but results have been, I won't say well, actually, you'd probably have to say catastrophic. They've not even finished on the podium in these 3 races since the summer break. Double DNF at Zandvoort, not even on the podium at the home race, and look like they're heading for 8th and 9th here. That is absolutely awful. And as here is Albon, very nice dummy, and he's up to 13th as Pierre Gasly has finally decided to pit. And Gasly will come out 18th. So both Alpines at the back. Alpine may as well just not turn up for the rest of the races this season because they have been consistently just finishing last in races as of late. And now 18th and 19th. As lap 37. And we're still watching the forever battle of Leclerc and Lawson. Another battle to look out for that might crop up in a moment is Carlos Sainz. He's only a couple seconds behind Lewis Hamilton. Forget that, because Lewis Hamilton has finally decided to pit from that absolutely dreadful stint.
Yeah, you looked away at the wrong time when they come up with the radio message saying box to Lewis.
Right.
So you got unlucky with that one.
As he comes out miles really behind his teammate. So yeah, 9th place. We'll see what he can do, but I have zero hope for Ferrari at this point.
On that last lap, he lost 0.7 to Norris.
Yeah, no idea. Absolutely no idea. And, people in the comments of my video, they said, and I knew that the argument would be made, the car has problems. Of course it has problems. Leclerc has displayed that today and in other races, but he is so far off the pace of what he should be doing. It's just simply nowhere near good enough. As McLaren look like they are finally about to pit for what will be a set of hard tyres. Can he get the jump on Tsunoda? Might make the difference when it comes to the World Championship, an extra couple points or so. As in he comes on lap 38. And, another slow pit stop. I'm not quite sure what it was. But that would not have helped, because now he's going to drop behind Lawson and Leclerc. And in 8th place. And Lando, well, these final, 12, 13 laps, he needs to save his championship. If he finishes in 8th place, yes, he'll gain points on Piastri, but that will be nowhere near enough. He has got to pass these two before the end of the race. So Lando in 8th. As I didn't even have to look at my phone to know what that beeping sound was. As what was the actual issue? Was it the rear jack or was it the rear tyre?
Right rear was a little bit slow, but then I'm not too sure.
Right front looked like was a couple seconds slow as well.
Oh yeah, it is right front. Yeah. It didn't look like the car was properly up on the jack almost, did it?
No,
It was
that's
a
what I
bit
mean.
weird.
It looks like something at the rear. As Sonoda now pits, and can he come out ahead of that Lawson, Leclerc, Norris battle? And yes, he will. So Yuki Tsunoda has jumped. Has he just about? Oh, it's going to be close. Tsunoda is on the medium, but Lawson, much hotter tyres. And Lawson, DRS open, and he's going to get the move done. And Lawson is up to 5th. Of course, Lawson and Tsunoda fighting for their Formula 1 future. This should be a good battle then.
Wow.
And that pushes Carlos Sainz onto the podium with just over 10 laps to go. As Lewis Hamilton now does the fastest lap of the race. He's gained a lot of time on Leclerc in this last couple laps or so. So, Tsunoda is now on the medium. And so is Lewis Hamilton. As Bortoletto is up to 11th. Lance Stroll has finally pitted. So he's down in 17th. So it's Bortoletto in 11th. And then Albon, Ocon, Behrman. As Russell now pits. And Russell will come out ahead of Carlos Sainz and secure 2nd place. Good drive from Russell today. And yeah, he will secure 2nd. And that's why I rate Russell, because he consistently gets the best results he can. As Norris having a look at the back of Leclerc, but just not close enough into the braking zone. As they come through turn 2. And the problem now for Norris is that Leclerc has DRS from the back of Tsunoda, so Norris just cannot go anywhere. Tsunoda has been very slow since the pit stop, considering he's on much fresher medium tyres.
Yeah, it's interesting.
As Max Verstappen, I think, has just been told to box. Interestingly, Antonelli is only a 2.5 behind Sainz. So Carlos might have to defend hard for these final 10 laps or so if he's going to finish on the podium and prevent a double Mercedes podium. As we're looking through the visor cam of Lando Norris. And here comes Max Verstappen, lap 41. Over half a minute clear of the next car. They could have had a tea break if they wanted. And Max Verstappen rejoins in the lead, and he's going to win the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Lando Norris, though, right up behind Leclerc. Leclerc has dropped over a second behind Tsunoda, who looks like he's got going finally. Surely Norris has got to get this move done. He looks a lot quicker. DRS opens. And Lando Norris overtakes Leclerc, who doesn't even fight back. Crucial move for Norris. Now up to 7th place. So that's 6 points that he's heading for at the moment. That put the gap down to 25 points between Piastri and Norris. But he could still get another couple positions. As Esteban Ocon, talking of positions, has been told to swap positions with his teammate Behrman, who's on medium tyres.
Hamilton is absolutely flying. He's at least a second quicker than everyone else on track.
It just makes you wonder, obviously, just where on earth was that earlier?
If he had stayed behind Norris, It could have been fifth.
Yeah. There's all Russell there, replay of him coming into the pit entry. He really attacked that. And yeah, just a replay of that pit stop. Behrman, by the way, has been let through by his teammate. Behrman has only got Albon and Bortoletto ahead, who are having a little battle. Bortoletto, though, in 11th is nearly 16 seconds behind Hadjar, so none of them are going to score a point unless there's a DNF from the top 10. As Carlos Sainz saying, leave it to me on the radio. Carlos only just over a second clear of Antonelli. Got to keep it that way if he wants to make sure of a podium finish. Can Lawson hang on to 5th? Top performances, by the way, from Sainz and Lawson today. And not just today, but this weekend. Their pace has been absolutely brilliant. But Lawson is going to be under pressure very soon from Yuki Tsunoda, who really is starting to get after Lawson now on those fresh medium tyres. As Lewis Hamilton now right behind Leclerc. And reports of light rain at turn 16. As that's for Albon's radio. I'm pretty sure that Lewis Hamilton will be passing Leclerc if not been told, or Leclerc will be told to let Hamilton through in the next lap or so because Hamilton miles quicker.
Yeah.
But Tsunoda looking closer. Let's see what the exit from turn 16 is like, and it is good. But is it good enough for Tsunoda to have a go at Lawson? Down the pit straight they come. Their Formula One futures depend on it. As Tsunoda's DRS is open, and here he comes. Down to turn 1. And he doesn't quite force Lawson to go move offline to defend, as Lewis Hamilton has been let through by Charles Leclerc. As Hamilton now sets after Lando Norris, who is just under 3 seconds ahead of him on track. So, and just a quick replay they're just showing of him being let through.
Yeah, no messing about. I like it. The right decision as well, because you can really get after Norris and Tsunoda here, and even Lawson, of course.
Yeah, with the pace he's got, he could easily do it. It just needs to get after these lot quickly, and he is. He's really catching these three. The longer Lawson stays ahead of Tsunoda and Norris, the better for Hamilton, because it will hold Tsunoda and Norris up and push Hamilton, or push them into Lewis Hamilton. As Carlos Sainz has pulled away from Antonelli by half a second or so, the gap up to 1.7, now 1.6 seconds. Carlos pushing for all he can to get that podium. As Lando Norris, DRS open, but Tsunoda ahead also has the DRS. But Tsunoda is unfortunately not close enough. The McLaren, though, so much better under braking. As they now go through turn 2. And Tsunoda now is going to try and get close enough to Lawson so he can have a proper go, when they come round to the pit straight again. As Lewis Hamilton continuing to catch pretty quickly, the gap under 2 seconds between Hamilton and Norris. as they continue to battle on here for what is, you'd think, the way they're fighting and pushing, that this is for a podium or a race win, but it's only for 5th place. But still crucial positions. For Racing Bulls, this is very important. They're currently heading for 11 points, which for a team like them is a lot of points. Would pull them very comfortably clear of Aston Martin in the championship. They'd be 10 points clear of them going into the final 7 races. Tsunoda looks closer on this occasion as they race through the kinks. Can Tsunoda launch an attack on 5th place Lawson? I think he's going to. Lawson knows it. He's weaving. And here comes Tsunoda. Round the outside, is he? Nope, he's going to force Lawson offline. But Lawson gets a great exit. Of course, these two absolutely brilliant friends and have been for years. But Tsunoda doesn't get a good enough exit from turn 2. Norris gets a much better exit, but surely is not going to go for a move there. He's nowhere near close enough. Lewis Hamilton, though, almost has DRS. Probably he will at the end of this lap. So watch out for Hamilton, who, despite having an awful race up until this point, might still finish in the top 5, and looks like he is going to still finish ahead of his teammate. As we're looking at Tsunoda through his eyes there.
Now Max is back in his favourite pastime, setting purple first sectors.
Yeah, Verstappen and Russell obviously out on the medium tyre. As Carlos Sainz, about 2 seconds clear now of Antonelli. He's getting the job done, is the Spaniard. As Hamilton saying, these guys are fast, mate, trying to catch up with them. And then he's
That's
told...
not what I want to hear.
And then he's told, you can do it. Lawson is 2.5 seconds ahead. He crucially doesn't have DRS on that occasion. He definitely will get it the next time around, though. As Norris is trying all sorts of different lines to try and get a good run on Tsunoda. But he now drops back a bit further. Now Hamilton properly has the DRS. And remember, even though both Norris and Hamilton have DRS, the Ferrari is obviously quicker down the straights than the McLaren. So if Hamilton can get a run, it's doable. And obviously he's on better tyres. As they continue fighting on. And Norris right up behind Tsunoda as they enter now the castle section. As Hamilton dropping back slightly to the castle section. Leclerc, by the way, still in there to a degree. He's only a couple seconds behind Hamilton. Also, Isaac Hadjar in 10th. He's only 4 seconds behind Leclerc and is catching Leclerc. Hadjar did pick quite a bit after Leclerc, so Hadjar still pushing out there. You never know what could happen. Remember last year with Perez and Sainz crashing at the end. As Norris a lot closer to Tsunoda than Tsunoda is to Lawson, but Tsunoda having DRS is why Norris cannot get that move done. It's 1:43.4 for Verstappen, new fastest lap. But I think, to be honest, in this battle, what we need, if we're going to get any wheel-to-wheel action, we need Tsunoda to start going wheel-to-wheel with Lawson. and then it will cause a chain reaction, especially if Tsunoda can get an overtake done. But Tsunoda starting to struggle more so in keeping Lawson within reach. He's now dropped over a second behind Liam Lawson as they enter the castle section, but now he's brought it back under a second. As they fly down to turn 15. And Tsunoda closing in towards the end of the lap. As we're looking through the visor cam of Lando Norris, who gets a good exit, but still, Tsunoda ahead will have the DRS. As down the pit straight, I have no idea how close Tsunoda is to Norris. Norris is pretty close behind Tsunoda. Right, tucked in the slipstream. Will he think about sending it? No, he does not. As through turn 2, still no moves can be made. Carlos Sainz in third, 1.6 seconds clear of Kimi Antonelli. And it looks like Carlos Sainz will hang on for that podium. Tremendous job by him, as Alex Albon has overtaken Gabriel Bortoleto. That doesn't mean Albon's going to finish in 11th, though, because Albon still has a penalty to be added on to his race time.
According to that, Norris has no battery left.
Still not sure how accurate those AWS things are, to be honest. I think someone did a tweet once about how it's like only like barely accurate. So we'll see.
By the way, Hamilton through the castle section then. My God.
As Tsunoda bit closer on this occasion to Lawson than he was last time, but is he close enough to send it? No, he's not. He just needs like another couple tenths of a second to actually go for it.
It's very close then.
But it just looks like these four are just going to remain line of stand because Tsunoda just cannot get close enough to actually go for it.
Ultimately, Lawson's pace is just probably good enough, and he's quick in the right places.
Yeah, he is. He's driven brilliantly today. He's had cars behind him the whole race, but he's dealt with it wonderfully. As well, that Racing Bulls car, pretty good in the traction areas. As we're on board with Norris. And heading for 6 points, but that is not enough to capitalise on Piastri's awful weekend. As Pierre Gasly overtakes Colapinto in 18th place. But we are now on the penultimate lap. And Tsunoda definitely not close on this occasion. As Isaac Hadjar is still catching Leclerc. Gap is just over 2.5 seconds. Hadjar is going to run out of laps, but great effort from him. As they all go through turn 1 and into turn 2. Tsunoda just cannot get close enough through the exits. That's down to turn 3. Closer on this occasion, but it's all what matters is what the run is like on the exit of turn 16 to be able really to get a proper move done here. As Carlos Sainz still keeping the gap at 2.5. Carlos Sainz surely is going to take a podium for Williams. As through the castle section, Lawson still keeping himself far enough ahead. As Norris will be desperately hoping that Tsunoda drops too far behind Lawson. But it doesn't appear that that is going to happen, as we're now on the final lap of the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And Tsunoda, he's not going to have a go at Lawson as Max Verstappen begins his final lap. Nib, a word on our race winner. What a dominant performance. What a man.
Yep, absolutely perfection by Verstappen in this race. I mean, he's not really been challenged, but he's just done what he's had to do. And great drives by Russell and especially Carlos Sainz. Amazing drive today.
Absolutely. As Lando there tried to have a go at Tsunoda, put his car around the outside, but he just did not have enough momentum and grip. Will he send it at turn 3? No. He's not going to take that big of a risk. But Max Verstappen coming through the final few corners. And yes, chances are that he is not going to win his 5th World Championship, but those chances still have increased quite a bit. He will be 69 points behind with 7 races to go, plus I think 2 or 3 more sprint races left on the calendar. But even if he doesn't win the championship, he's proven this weekend, just like the last Grand Prix weekend, that he is still by far the best driver in Formula One as he weaves to the line to take his 2nd win in Baku. Max Verstappen wins the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. Red Bull take their 4th win in Baku in the last 5 editions of this race. George Russell takes his best ever result in Baku of 2nd. Carlos Sainz finishes in 3rd, his first podium since the last Grand Prix of 2024. And Williams' first podium of the season and first podium in a very long time. Antonelli 4th. Lawson 5th. What a drive from Lawson. Tsunoda 6th. Norris 7th. Hamilton 8th. Leclerc 9th. Isaac Hadjar in 10th. And then Alex Albon, I think, will just about finish 12th behind Bortoletto because of his penalty. And then it'll be Albon, Behrman, Ocon, Alonso, Hulkenberg, Stroll, Gasly, Colapinto, and your only DNF, the World Championship leader, Oscar Piastri. But Max Verstappen, what a man, what a drive. And if he just keeps winning the remaining races, or, most of them, then who knows what could happen. It would certainly be the greatest comeback in Formula One championship history if he was to somehow win his 5th. But Carlos Sainz, what a drive, and he's been voted driver of the day. And Nib, I think you'd have to agree, driver of the day, Carlos Sainz. Absolutely brilliant pace, and finally delivering what we expected from him in 2025, hasn't he?
Yeah, I was going to make a joke that Piastri was driver of the day, but yeah, the timing wasn't right. So, but no, unbelievable drive by Sainz. I mean, his pace, even at the end there, he was faster than Antonelli and nearly on the same pace as Russell. Like, just a tremendous drive by Sainz. He only finished 19 seconds off the lead. Just a mega drive, and I don't think we thought this was possible today, but what a drive by Sainz, especially after the shocking year he's had.
Yeah, then that will do his world championship position wonders, because he was, I think, down in 18th place in the championship coming into this race. So fantastic for Sainz. Let me just quickly start up in the chat the driver of the day vote. Who's your driver of the day for the Azerbaijan Grand Prix? And we'll see who you guys decide to vote for. And the options for driver of the day will be Max Verstappen, George Russell, Carlos Sainz, and of course Liam Lawson deserves a massive shout out. That could save Lawson's career, that 5th place today.
Yeah.
So there you go. Ultimately, though, Nib, of course, I know you're most focused on the championship, and that was from Lando Norris a massive missed opportunity. Only 6 points he's taken. The gap now 25 points, and Oscar will be breathing a massive sigh of relief, won't he?
A massive sigh of relief. I mean, for Lando to not make up any positions on his starting grid slot was well and truly unexpected, and yeah, Oscar got away with one today. That's for sure.
And at the end of the day, as we've seen in championship battles, when your rival has a non-score or low score, you have to take advantage. And Lando, he did in Melbourne, but here, absolutely not. And that might be his biggest chance to really swing things back in his favour. Gone. There's still another 7 races to go. So, who knows, but that was a big opportunity missed by Lando. Even if he finished 5th, that would have put the gap down to 21 points. But, yeah, the gap, 25 points. Next race is Singapore. McLaren should dominate there. Norris dominated there last year. So if Lando can win the next Grand Prix, then maybe that will put the gap down to, say, at least 18 points. But, yeah, still a massive missed opportunity for Lando Norris. But yeah, make sure to vote, guys, on the driver of the day vote. And we'll see who you guys vote for. But that was not as good of a race as I was hoping, but it was a pretty decent race. Wasn't as good as last year. Last year was a brilliant race. One of my favourite races of the last couple years, but it was a decent race. Again, these cars, the DRS is not powerful enough with these cars, and that's why you get trains a lot of the time. With the 2021 cars, we would have had a lot more overtaking today, which is mad to say because these cars we have now literally came in because we wanted more overtaking. But there you go. That's how Formula One works. We'll see, and hopefully it'll improve for the future. But yeah, it was a decent race. We had a couple obviously surprise results. Sainz 3rd, Lawson 5th, and yeah, it was still a decent one. At least it was a competitive Grand Prix, unlike the last one at Monza. Let me just read a few comments out before we head off. Michael Jones says Piastri just not win it this weekend. Surprising, because obviously last year in Baku he was so brilliant, but every driver has that weekend where they are just not on it. And from Oscar's point of view, he'll be hoping that this weekend he's just had will be that out of the way and that he can return to normal for the rest of the season. But he cannot afford to do this again because Lando will take advantage somewhere else if it happens again. But yeah, we'll see.
just one thing as well. Hamilton did give the place to Leclerc. So Hamilton finished in ninth, Leclerc in eighth.
All right. So, yeah, 8th and ninth there for Ferrari. McLaren, by the way, did not win the Constructors today. They only outscored, or they didn't outscore Ferrari at all. They scored the same amount of points. So, McLaren will have to wait until the next Grand Prix in Singapore. Mercedes, though, scored 30 points today, and Ferrari only scored 6. So I think Mercedes are now second in the championship, ahead of Ferrari. So, and Red Bull, I know, are a lot closer to that battle because Red Bull today scored 33 points. And yeah, Mercedes are now second. Confirmation. Mercedes is second, 4 points clear of Ferrari. Red Bull are only 18 points now away from second. Williams have now got 101 points. Racing Bulls are now 10 points clear of Aston Martin. So looks likely that Williams will finish 5th and Racing Bulls finish in 6th. Racing Bulls, though, very quick since the summer break. And I really am looking forward to seeing what they do at Singapore, because I think that's a track that they'll do very well at, and I think they could really spring a surprise in a couple weeks. A rare mare Baku race, still gutted for Piastri. Dane says Max Verstappen driver of the day. Cruiser's support says Yuki driver of the day, stole points from Norris, which helps Max. And Cruz also saying Max back in the championship. Papaya rules will choke. Lots of races to go. Nello Angelo saying good overall. I expected more from McLaren and Ferrari, to be honest. I think everyone did. Yeah, disappointing pace, to be honest. The thing is, though, this is 2 races in a row now where Red Bull have been a lot quicker than we expected. If they keep that up, and Max keeps up this level of performance, then he's forcing himself into the championship battle to the point where Piastri and Norris will have to make sure they don't mess up so that Max doesn't get to the point where he's actually, going to win it. So I'm interested to see what happens in Singapore. McLaren still should dominate, but given how great Max is at the moment, who knows what he could do in Singapore. I mean, imagine if he goes and does a Hamilton 2018 lap in qualifying. That would really get pulses racing. But we'll find out in a couple weeks.
But just to correct my mistake, I very much looked at this live, but Hamilton did not give the place back to Leclerc.
Right, so yeah, Rook said the timing screen has Hamilton still at 8th. So, yeah. I mean, to be honest, there was no point giving the position back. It was still going to be the same result. So, yeah. But just to confirm, Max Verstappen is now 69 points behind Oscar Piastri. Meaning that technically, that Max Verstappen can win the championship, but he still does need Oscar Piastri to really have I wouldn't say a poor final 7 races, but a lot worse than what we've seen. If Max wins all the remaining races and Oscar finishes 3rd, then Max will just about win the championship. That's what is needed. So again, it is still very unlikely, but I think we have to say for the minute that he is back in the championship fight, because you just don't know what's going to happen. If only Max had not deliberately hit Russell in Spain and then spun at Silverstone. It'd be what, probably 55 or 50 points behind instead of 69, but that's the way it goes. Dane saying Hamilton was told to let Leclerc through. Hamilton gets PTSD because he gets beaten by drivers who has worse season than him. Cites Lawson, Yuki Antonelli. And as well, Seragara saying there in the chat, that is Max Verstappen's 67th win in Formula One, which is absolutely mental considering he's only, 27? I think he is. Yeah, 27. And he turned 27. Well, he turns 28, actually, in about a week and a half. So, yeah, absolutely mental. He's... let me look at the F1 all-time wins. And yeah, Verstappen is third, and he's got another 24 race wins to go until he equals Michael Schumacher, which he'd probably do that in the next 2 or 3 years. So he is probably going to end up with the most race wins in history, is Verstappen. Right. I think we will finish up the poll, which bit of a tight vote, but there is a winner. 54 votes, and Max Verstappen has won the vote. To be fair, Max was absolutely brilliant today. 51% of the vote. And then Sainz second, Lawson third, Russell in fourth. Thank you guys for voting, and thank you guys for coming along, obviously, for all the content this weekend. Nib, thanks for coming along for this race watch along. We're going to be skipping the race for Singapore, but hopefully you'll be able to join us for maybe one of the North American races, we'll have to see.
Well, it was certainly a nice weekend, or nice race for me. Started at 9 o'clock, and of course, the race went 20 minutes shorter than qualifying yesterday, so that's always handy. Unsure if I'll be able to join for any of the North American races, to be honest. It'll depend on my work schedule, but yeah, just great to be on again. And thanks for everyone's continued support in the chat. Always great to be on. And until next time, yeah, I'll see you guys later.
Yeah, cheers for coming on. And yeah, we'll see if you're able to make it for the North American ones. If not, then obviously we've got Vegas, which I know is a great time for you, which is in a couple months. But guys, thank you very much for coming along for the content this weekend. And great to have you as usual. The plan, content-wise, is pretty simple for the next couple of weeks. Tomorrow, there'll be a podcast reviewing the Azerbaijan Grand Prix. And then there won't be any content on the channel between then and Singapore. And then for Singapore, I will be doing a qualifying watch-along, but I will not be doing a race watch-along because we know the race in Singapore is very boring. Last year proved that. So, yeah. Qualifying watch-along only for the next Grand Prix. Qualifying is what matters in Singapore. Pretty much like what we have in Monaco. So that's what we'll be doing for the Singapore Grand Prix. And then, of course, even though I'll be missing the race watch-along, I will still do a podcast the day after to review whatever happens in the Singapore Grand Prix. Thank you guys for coming along for this content this weekend. Make sure to smash a like button before you go. Make sure as well to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. And guys, until the next bit of content tomorrow, reviewing this Grand Prix, and until the next Grand Prix on the calendar, as we return to Asia for the last time this season for the Singapore Grand Prix in 2 weeks' time, it has been me, Kazza HD. Goodbye.